Kyle Kulinski was stuck about 970,000 to 980,000 subs for well over a year. And then campaign season started, and he figured out that the way he was going to boost his subscription count was he had to back a candidate. So he's been all in on Marianne Williamson for the last couple of months, and boom, million subs, baby. That's what I told you this was about. That's what I told you this was about. You got to listen to me. You got to listen to me. Okay? So now we're going to break this down because now he is all in for Marianne Williamson, and he was very, very upset at a Politico article that recently came out. I'm just going to toss this on the screen very, very quickly because we have some other exhibits that we're going to show. But this came out here. Marianne Williamson's abusive treatment of 2020 campaign staff revealed. All right. So this details some allegations of workplace abuse at Marianne campaign headquarters in 2020. Kyle put out a video tearing this apart, or so he tried. We're going to play excerpts from this video. We will link to the full video in the description. I will update the description of this video with that so that people can watch the whole thing if they want. There's really no reason to. We just want to make sure that you understand we're not editing it in a manipulative way to take anything out of context. So we'll give you access to the full thing.
This video made me fucking furious. It's so dishonest. It's so deceptive. It's so disrespectful to the people who watch him and trust that he's telling them the truth. Like the things that he does here, the tactics that he uses, they're not only corporate media propaganda tactics. There is no kind interpretation you can put on it. Well, he's distorting it. It's on. No, he lies. He lies repeatedly, just one lie after another, demonstrably.
Welcome to a special edition of the Nick and CJ show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family, man? This is gonna be a great week of RBN. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I did. It's gonna be a great week, and this is gonna be a great conversation. You guys, I heard the comments, man. We heard the demands. You guys are demanding it. You guys finally got the crossover that so many people was wanting to see, and we brought the goods to you guys. Do Dissidence been doing good work on YouTube. I'm gonna bring them in. There's much to discuss. I had Kid on for Heartlands Media. Make sure you guys check that conversation out where we broke down one of the videos that Russell was at this event. He exposed his shit lips. So I'm super interested in talking about that as well. But we got to do Dissidence in the house. What's popping? What's popping, my friends?
How are you guys? Great to finally meet you. Caught me off guard there with that intro clip. I'm like, oh shit, are we on? I didn't think I was wearing that shirt today. Am I wearing? No. Oh, there we go.
What's up, fellas? First time, but just love the work that you've been doing, and we've been playing the videos, and we know that you play ours, we play yours.
Yes, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. This is actually, believe it or not, in the darkest days of COVID, when we were really developing our show. A friend of mine was asking me where I wanted to take the show. One of the things I said was I wanted to do stuff with you guys.
Let's go.
I'm not even kidding.
This is what people wanted to see, bro. Now you guys have it. Make sure you guys share. This is going to be a good one because you guys have analysis of the boutique left the same way we have done. I see a lot more people willing to criticize, like Marianne Williamson, for example. People were first shy, but RBN and Do Distance, we dove right in because, as the title suggests, I feel like the boutique left, the NATO left, the people who are sympathetic to the Democratic Party, they have done immeasurable harm to the left. And I want to show you guys this, and this is a great way to start off, and I'm eventually get to the protest regarding shit lips, because I had a conversation with Ryan Grimm earlier today on Twitter.
I saw some of that,
yeah. And this is a conversation I am willing to have on his channel, because there's a conversation that his people need to understand, because this is the harsh reality. You guys can speak on this as well. You have Biden, who is moving right on immigration. And they said, well, that hurt him in 2024. That's what they care about. They don't care about the principle and the lie and the fact that he's governing just like Trump. That's what they really care about. Right. So what I said, we'll start this. I'm actually curious what your guys' thoughts on. Feel free to interrupt. I'm probably going to pass to you guys here soon. I said, push Biden left is the worst age political tactic of my lifetime, and everyone who pushed it should never be taken seriously again. Now, because go ahead, Keaton, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's no moving any of these people in any direction, right? I mean, we've reached a sort of stasis point, and especially when it comes to immigration, the only difference between Democrats and Republicans is how we feel about what's going on at the southern border. That's all it is, right? Under Trump, we're proud to say, stay the hell out. This is our country. We can't have people pouring in. And under Biden, it's, well, we want to treat these people with dignity and respect, but they have to stay the hell out. They can't come in, right? Like, that's the only difference. The only difference is tone. It's how we, the people, are supposed to feel about draconian border enforcement, because under this system, there must be a closed border or a tough border. There must be mistreatment of people at the border. That's the only way to enforce this system that we have. So the only thing that's actually at stake is how the voters feel about it. And that is demonstrated perfectly. That's why you have these sort of log jams at the border where they had that migrant center fire in Juarez, because we are turning people back, and all of these migrant centers south of the border are becoming overrun. And why are those migrant centers becoming overrun? Because more people are coming up. Why are more people coming up? Because they think that Biden's going to be nicer to them than Trump was. And then they get there and they find out he's not. And that creates a crisis south of the border. So no, there's no pushing left. There's no pushing anywhere.
Absolutely. Well said. Go ahead, Russell. CJ, anything you guys want to add before I move on?
I'll let Russell chime in.
The day after the election, I went down to Columbus Circle, and everybody was celebrating, 2020. And I went up Amsterdam Avenue, which goes up the Upper West Side. So this is really shit-lib homeworld, right? And they're all out there having brunch. They're having brunch. And I took a bunch of pictures of them having brunch. And I put up the pictures. I was like, man, they didn't even wait. They're back. They promised they'd go back to brunch. They're already back to brunch.
They couldn't wait, man.
They couldn't wait. And people started screaming at me, we're gonna hold Biden's feet to the fire. I laughed my ass off. I said, "Oh, now you're gonna hold his feet to the fire." You never held any Democrat
at like 11:30 on a Saturday morning. It was brunch time. It was perfect time.
That's it. Oh, now you never held a Democrat's feet to the fire before. Now all of a sudden, we're supposed to believe.
I'm not even sure.
I'm
not even sure they know what that means. Like, what does that even mean to them? Like,
CJ,
what is holding them accountable if it's not primary in them or something like that? Go ahead.
CJ, Keaton, Russell, fam. You guys notice the same people who was like, we're going to be the ones on the front line holding Biden accountable. Yeah, I'm voting for Jim Crow Joe Biden. One of the most anti-black, destructive, working-class politicians in my lifetime. But don't worry, we're gonna hold him accountable. Those people are the number one people who do nothing but repeat January 6th hysteria, attacking Republicans all the time. Exactly. They're now full-time DNC operation PSYOP operatives now, because all they do is attack Republicans. That's all they do. They talk about Tucker Carlson. They talk about Ben Shapiro. And the last thing they're talking about is the stuff we cover, the corruption going on in Ukraine, how Biden is actually funding the border industrial complex more than Donald Trump and Republicans. They're not even covering this. And Marianne Williamson was asked about her corruption by Jordan, and she was like, what corruption? I have economic disagreements. He's not corrupt. And CJ, I got something for you guys later. I don't know if I got time for it today, but they had the full interview between David Schroeder and AOC that dropped today.
Oh, I have not seen it yet.
David Schroeder was like, why you vote Biden at 91%? He brought up all the bad things that Biden has done, including the Willow Project. He like this Willow Project is bad for Biden, right? And then she couldn't even really bring him to criticize him. She said, like, yeah, this is disappointing. They did this. But on the other hand, the reception to our criticism has been positive.
Oh wow.
What the fuck
Well,
does
this is
that
the
mean?
thing. Whether it's
I'm sorry, I'm spoiling the segment, but go ahead, Keith. We'll get
Oh,
to a
that's
segment on that
ridiculous.
eventually.
What,
Go ahead.
what does that mean? They didn't threaten your relatives this time?
Yeah, no.
I mean, whether it's the
Uh,
Willow Project, whether it's immigration, right? This idea, and you talk about the boutique left, the NATO left, right? You talk about just the sort of duopoly left as opposed to the post-duopoly left, right? I think that's a very good way of framing it, right? They have it in their head that progressives are going to make the Democrats pay for fucking them. Oh, now, because you moved right on immigration. You crossed the Brianna Joy Gray audience is coming for you now. Like, what the fuck? Like, they're not going to do shit. They're not going to do anything. Whether it's the Willow Project, whether it's the border thing, they're not going to hold them accountable for fucking anything. And this is the real
You
flaw
gotta
with
organize harder.
well, yes, because the misunderstanding that people like Bree have and people like Sirota have is that the voters are actually on the progressive side, and it's just a matter of organizing them and mobilizing them. But I'm sorry, no, the voters, especially Democratic primary voters, very much resemble the guy with the cowbell and the guy who pulls the fucking bullhorn out of his ass, right? Like, that's the majority of Democratic voters. That is their mindset. So no, unfortunately, I wish they were right about this, obviously, but they're not. The evidence bears out that they are not right about this. The voters are not on our side. The voters, by and large, Democratic primary voters especially, are fucking dumb as shit. And that's just a fact, right? I wish that weren't the case. And by the way, I don't mean all voters. I mean a subset of voters that vote in Democratic primaries, 70% of whom trust the mainstream media. That's all you have to know about them.
Right.
And, that's why I think that's part of the reason why that clip that Russ put up sort of went semi-viral, because that exposed a certain contingent of voter for what they are. Right. Those people were a very sort of comical and exaggerated version of the mainstream Democrat voter, but they're not of a different kind.
Yeah, you're talking about blue MAGA, like the standard Democrat.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is what me and CJ talk about. Like, who's the person that watches more than Joe? Me and CJ watch it for kicks. That shit's funny.
It's funny.
And we ready to roast them. I watch the statement. I can't wait. I'm gonna see what statement I can roast on here. But there are people who tune into More Than Joe and think like, yo, this is legitimate reporting. I go on the top of the line reporting here, right?
They
like,
cannot think
are those
that.
people? Not a lot, right? But I think those are people that Keenan are talking about. I view those no differently than the people you see at like those Trump rallies. Like the red-blue game has destroyed and fried the minds of a ton of people.
I have an anecdotal story, and it just happened yesterday. It just happened yesterday for Easter. My mom is actually I'm here. Forgot I was here. I guess I'm gonna tell the story a little low here. So, but
I'm in my mother-in-law's apartment now too, because there's kids at my place, so I changed for this too.
Exactly. So there is a target demographic that they go to, and I think my mom, is part of that demographic. An older person, retired. Really has a lot of free time, so a lot of that time is spent watching the news because they're thinking I'm staying abreast of what's happening. That's what they think. I'm staying abreast, and I came here yesterday. She was like, "Yeah, that DeSantis," and I was like, "Oh my God, no, my mom." No, I mean, there's plenty to. The point is not that DeSantis is not horrific. The point is that DeSantis is not the only one who's horrific. And so all of my family gatherings always lead up to political conversations. This is how it's always been, even before, like, I was doing podcasts. It always leads to political conversations. And I just tried to break it down for, some of my kinfolk. My sister was here, her boyfriend and some other people was here, just pointing out this is the same team. And what always gets them, and then I'll pass it back to you, Nick. What always gets them, though, is when I say, take Amazon. When Amazon donates to Republicans and Democrats, do you think they have a different plan when Democrats are in office and when Republicans are in office? Or do you think it's the same plan that two teams are just executing for the same company? And then that's when they were like, oh, well, and they move on to something else. So, but that's what happened yesterday. Just a little anecdotal story to say there are people that are really buying some of this stuff. There are really people that are buying.
The celebrities help, but go ahead, Russell.
I think a lot of the older people, they never got it in their head that this shit is not Walter Cronkite anymore. I'm not saying the news was perfect then.
Absolutely.
But before Reagan deregulated it, they treated the news as part of fulfilling their public service requirement in exchange for licensing the public airwaves. So they left it relatively independent to be about news and not about a profit. They didn't see the news as a profit center for the network. That all changed during Reagan. But these boomers, they don't see that change because it was the frog in the pot of water. My father is like a character out of a Tom Waits song, man. My father lives at the track. He trains racehorses. He's I woke up at the track. That's my dad, man. You talk to my father. Well, the parliamentarians said they can't do it. I go, Dad, do you realize these people wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire? They don't know people like you. Right. They don't give a fuck about people like you. You're like a joke to these people. Why are you defending him? But he's even a guy like that. He's from that generation where they respect these institutions and they haven't evolved their understanding. They don't realize this is not what they grew up with anymore. They don't get it.
Well, think about it, Russell. Think about the era when government was working. If you think about semi-working, think about all the legislation from the 60s. So to them, it's like government can do these things. They're sort of the last generation that was in their prime where government actually produced legislation, partly due because of the war protests that was going on and all the civil rights protests kind of all culminating. But I do feel like this can be that same moment. It feels like it always, to ramp up to elections. People are like, no, I'm not voting Democrat. You have all those people that do this every year and then they end up voting. But there is a segment, and I think we represent that, do Dissidence and RBN. We represent that where we're like, nah, we're not doing it. And we're seeing some of that pushback, Nick. We're seeing that, and I'll pass it to you, Nick. We're seeing some of that pushback since we're having its hardline stance on Marianne Williamson, for example.
Yeah, and we're the post-duopoly left, and the people who are still duopoly leftists, they're having a hard time reconciling our positions.
You see Peter Dow? Have you seen Peter Dow? It's like, look at the guy. He saw the light. Close. God bless him. And now he's going right into this Marianne Williamson thing. I tweeted at him, what is this thing you have about psychopathic women who abuse their staffs?
Sniped him.
And we retweeted him too on RBN, just pointing out, and I think it's something to the effect of the PMC member also coming out. And if you notice, these are all her friends from Kyle to Crystal to Bree to Vanguard who want to be her friend, but maybe she just kind of petting him on the head. To Steven, I forget his name, but the guy involved with the Shell or Chevron, to that guy, to Donziger, I think his name, Donziger, to now Susan Sarandon is not, but you notice Susan Sarandon is not coming out. Go out and support her. She just kind of retweeting her shit because it's her friend. So you have all these people in media or celebrities that are coming in and helping her out to sort of manufacture the very small support she has. I'll pass it back to you, Nick. I know you had something to bring up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the facts that the people who supported the strategy of coalescing behind Biden 2020, who gave me and Rome hell after Super Tuesday. This is why I got a chip on my shoulder. Still salty as hell about the shit a lot of these people gave me when they was obviously wrong. Like they was so arrogantly wrong about their strategy and theory of change. Like people like Vosh was making the argument that if we fall behind the Democratic Party, they'd be more receptive to progressive change. How does that make sense?
Terrible strategy. It's terrible.
And I was being gaslighted to death by these people. That's why I had a hard divorce. And that's why I'm out and open, refusing to let these people forget this, because there needs to be a reckoning. And there has not been a reckoning over the state of the progressive movement, the state of the working class, that these people had. RBN, we didn't have a platform the last 10 years. We wasn't in meetings with politicians. We didn't found the Justice Democrats. Whose strategy led us to this position where we are at right now? Is it RBN? No, it was the TYT left. It was the Ryan Grimm left. The people who have access. This is the strategy. They won. Their strategy was implemented. They was paid. And now we see the result of that. Keen, I know you want to try to. If you guys interrupt me, I won't be mad. I'm just.
No. That's fine. No. I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. That there is, I mean, the heading of the video, and you guys have mentioned it in the past, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, right? And I feel like the indie media ecosystem that emerged from that 2016 campaign, at least most of it, not all of it, obviously, but most of it is invested in perpetuating what I feel, and I would assume you guys feel the same way. Let me know if you don't. Is the misconception that we actually have a progressive movement, that we actually have real momentum in real numbers. This isn't to say there aren't some people out there doing their best. There's very encouraging things like Shama Sawant, Chris Smalls, right? That's all real. I don't want to like discount that, but TYT, Majority Report, Kyle, Humanist Report, all these shows really want to put in the audience's mind that they are part of something. And of course, how do they remain part of something? They continue to watch their shows, right? Mm-hmm. It just feeds them the same narrative. It's a very similar model and MO to corporate media, to the MSNBC, right? MSNBC convinced their viewers that they were hunting down the Trump-Russia smoking gun, right? And if you guys just stay tuned, we're going to find it, right? We're part of something. We're moving towards something. Turns out they had nothing. Same thing here. I watched that fucking joke-ash of the leftist mafia. I mean, I can't believe that shit. I don't know how you get 7 people in a Zoom meeting, not an ounce of self-awareness between them. How do you not realize how irrelevant you are? How do you not realize what a nowhere road this is? But all they have to do is create a narrative in the mind of the audience. That's all they have to do. And that's all these outlets are doing. And I think what you guys are doing and what we're trying to do is more challenging than that, but it's ultimately more rewarding than that because we're telling the truth. And the God's honest truth is I don't know if there is a way forward. I don't know if we're going to dig ourselves out of this. We might not. I would rather tell my audience that than try and gas them up over some bullshit Marianne Williamson campaign or moving Biden left or dirty break or this or that. Like, ultimately, what are we doing if we're not being honest? And the honest truth is this country is probably over. It's probably done with. And that's just the reality. Now, that's not to say there aren't causes worth taking up. Nick, you obviously spoke at the Shama launch. I think that's a wonderful thing. Mutual aid, the stuff that Rome is doing, that's a wonderful thing, right? I'm not saying, as a lot of people say, give up and do nothing, right? But let's just be honest with ourselves and our audiences about where we are and the state of this so-called movement that does not exist in most of these cases, except on the various YouTube channels of the people running them.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to speak on this because that's a concept that the professional managerial class never even consider. How do we survive the upcoming collapse? Late stage capitalism.
Right.
Or just waiting every 2 years for an election?
Well, they refuse.
Is that going to save us? Go ahead, Russell.
They refuse to admit that possibility because they're still living large themselves. They're still living well.
That's a big part of it.
So really, at most, and they'll never admit that, at most, they think it's going to happen to the peasants. They think they're not the peasants. They really need to pay attention to ChatGPT because when the system doesn't need them either, it's going to throw them overboard too. And that day is coming a lot faster than they realize. Legal contracts are really dependent on your memory of legal precedent. Who's going to do that? A person, or is AI going to do that better? AI already codes better. A lot of these PMC jobs are going away in the next few years, and they haven't even begun to consider that possibility. They are so accustomed to the system being set up to serve and accommodate them in exchange for their acquiescence and for their acting as a buffer between the real elites and everyone who's being screwed by the system. They are the foot soldiers of the system, but they don't realize the real people that this is made for don't give a fuck about them either. As soon as they don't need them, they're going to toss them right overboard.
Yeah, they're lost down there. I'm going to read the super chat because the super chat is related, and you guys can chime in on it if you want. The thing for $10. Noah, is the majority report and its orbiters just money grubs? Have they been co-opted by capital interests? Are they lazy? I think they are money grubs, but wanted to get your point of view. Thank you for the real stuff. Lazy is one big part of it. This is a career for them to have no skin. Again, we talk about that all the time. But lazy is another big part of it. They just go with whatever. Like once again, we do propaganda report where we'll show MSNBC segment. We'll show you guys what NPR is saying. And then we will see a majority report segment. They're saying the exact same thing. They lazy. They just say they want to. They put their finger up wherever the liberal wind go, and that's what they're gonna repeat. And their takes are always so predictable because of that. And then whenever they think outside the box, you get incredible gems like Emma Vigeland praising Andrew Cuomo during the time where we knew he was killing seniors in nursing homes. And you also had the amazing quote from Emma Vigeland when she said, I know you guys don't like Joe Biden, but if you care about climate alone, Joe Biden, you should vote for him just for that alone.
Yeah.
So you got that screenshot.
I wonder what she's saying about Willow Project now.
Yeah, you got the Willow Project going on now. So that's the critical analysis that you get from people like Majority Report. So take your conclusion can be like why they doing it, whatever, but they're not serious actors. And we show you guys, though, we do Sam Cedar segments, and we have a hard time getting through them without laughing. Like the comment section, you guys be laughing because to us, it's so obvious. But there are people that think these people are legitimate, where they're just lazy, liberal talking point pushers. That's all they are.
But that's we're talking, and this is I think this is what we coined the Bernie Sanders industrial complex. What we've been talking about is the Bernie Sanders industrial complex has gone really from like cutting edge heroes in 2015 and 16, and they just made a living off of that. So now, you know, in 2020, it was like, oh, this is just going to be a thing. We're just running candidates and making money and getting larger. No. That was just 2 times. Like, we're not going to continue. And they think that this is just the thing we're going to continue to do. And it seems like the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, they're no longer here to actually solve problems anymore. They're just kind of like, let's move the play piece one step here and then move it here, and then next election we'll move another play piece here. And that's really what they're trying to do. They've like how we call them. They've industrialized the process of trying to run a candidate and build a movement without trying to actually accomplish.
It will blow your guys' mind when you realize how much money these people made on this campaign. Like how much?
I'm sure. I believe it.
How much? Like people like Cal Kalinske, my favorite girl. These people are millionaires, guys.
Yeah,
pushing this, and they will do a segment that is brilliantly crafted about how politicians and neoliberals and conservatives, they have economic interests that will corrupt their decision making. Meanwhile, they're 100% immune. Trust me, bro. Trust us. We will never be influenced by the amount of money we was made pushing this fraud of the progressive left, of the Bernie Sanders movement. There's a statement I'm going to do either today or tomorrow where you have Emmanuel Macron, a neoliberal scum, who's like, maybe the United States, maybe the Europe should resist the United States, and maybe we should seek peace in Ukraine. Lula, we should seek peace in Ukraine. Meanwhile, these cowards can't even say that. Refuse to even say the bare minimum critique.
What do you think? What do you think it really is? And I'll pass it to our brothers here, Keaton and Russell. What do you think it really is like? Do you think if AOC or whoever, and I'm using AOC because that's the name that's most popular, but you can insert anybody all the way down to Pramila Jayapal, like if they really came out and was like, no, this war is wrong, the war started in 2000, if they really got in front of a camera and did that, what would actually happen? Like, do we think, what do you think they think? What is the fear of what's actually happening or going to happen if they did that?
It's all of a piece because the Democratic Party base is made up of cowbell men and bullhorn boys. because that's the base of the party. That's who you're getting on the wrong side of when you make that statement. So I think once you're making that congressional salary and you're getting those congressional benefits, and you've also been probably pulled off into a couple of back rooms and given a good talking to about what they're going to do to you. And look, I'm not going to I make a lot of jokes about, they show you pictures of your family and the addresses, but in all reality, hey, listen, you not only are going to get driven out of Congress because we're going to fund primaries against you, even if you somehow manage to survive that, we're going to make sure that your life is a living hell. You never are able to get on any committees, get any legislation passed. And if you do get out of Congress, we're going to make sure that you're never able to get any of those sweet revolving door gigs that friends of ours are able to get. It's like you're dealing with the mob. And I think most of them, very few people are able to function seeing themselves as the villain. So they convince themselves that they're doing the best that they can within the system as it is. And over time, they just completely get co-opted by the thing they went there to fight against. At this point, every time I see AOC talk, I hear Emperor Palpatine in my head. Your journey to the dark side is complete. She's totally one of them now. There's nothing left of the AOC that I campaigned for back in the day.
Wait till you guys see the Schroeder interview. It literally dropped this morning. I didn't finish it. I got like halfway through, and there's a part. I'm gonna do a minor spoiler where David Schroeder asked her about her voting, and asked her about how she voted with Biden 90% of the time, what their strategy about defeating big money and progressive dark money was, even though they keep losing. Like she asked them these questions about the strategy, right? And you want to know her response was? She's like, "Man, we trying, but if only you guys fought harder for us."
What?
That was her answer. Wait till you do a breakdown. Her answer essentially was, "Hey, I know I'm doing all these fucked up things. I know the Democrats are going to shift too far to the right. I know we keep losing, but it's mostly your fault, not mine. If only you guys organized more. If only you guys sent us more money. If only you guys got on top of your game. Not my fault. It's on you guys."
Vote
it's
harder.
a joke of interview. So, man, I can't wait to break. It's literally a joke. She blames the outside game for why she voted for Ukraine. That's
a piss poor excuse, obviously. But the kernel of truth there is that the outside game also does suck, right? Like the outside game.
I will actually disagree with that. There's the establishment outside game. Those are
that's what I'm talking about. When you talk about
I'm not
talking about Shama. I'm talking about
right.
right? I'm talking about the Young Turks. Like that game. They're not going to do anything. They are a paper tiger. So what? What? Oh yeah, you guys have to organize harder. What does it even mean? I don't even understand what it means. Like they're there. What, you want 100 more progressives in the House? You basically sell admission to the Progressive Caucus. What is it? $400? You have to pay a $400 fee to join. That's why fucking Hakeem Jeffries joined. Hakeem Jeffries bought his way into both caucuses, the Third Way and the CPC, so he could have it both ways. Like, what does it even mean? It doesn't. It's a meaningless thing to say. Well, you guys have to get stronger. And ultimately, what this all is in service of is just a certain stasis and a certain laziness that sets in. I mean, this is an imperial decline. And I think what happens at the end of empire is that the empire just gets lazy. They don't see a reason to keep doing it anymore. At a certain point, they have no reason to exist anymore. And just like when any organism has no reason to exist anymore, it starts to die. Right? I mean, that's just the lifespan of a thing, whether it's a bug, a person, or a country. And so I think that's the phase we're in. And because progress inside the system has become just impossible, once you get there, even if you run as this renegade outsider that AOC did and, knock down the House and all that stuff, once you get there, you realize there's not much I can do. And so if I vote against the Ukraine war, then MSNBC yells at me. If I vote for it, they treat me nice. What's easier? The latter. So that's what I do. You know, I think so much of this is just a collective laziness that has set in, a collective resignation that has set in. And then you have, like Nick, you were saying, the actual outside game.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
they are mobilized and they are energized, but there aren't many of them, unfortunately. And part of the reason there aren't many of them is because a lot of that anti-establishment sort of fervor has been funneled in to the Democratic Party, largely thanks to, and you know, I don't want to overinflate the importance of YouTube in general, but certainly outlets like TYT, Majority Report, do not help, right?
Yeah, and that's why they and you're on point there, but that's why it's such an important point to make that they're two different outside games. The outside game that is good, legitimate, is small because AOC and the establishment, they do their best to delegitimize and distance themselves from the real outside game. You have people who say they care about labor, nowhere to be found at Workers' Strike Back. You have people that claim to care about Medicare for All, nowhere to be found at the March for Medicare for All, including some kids from Kansas City who on YouTube too, who did. So you have all these people who have all these things to say, but when it comes to actually organizing with the outside game, they have no interest in doing it. And by doing so, they will say, "Oh, that's the red brown lines, the right wingers at the March for Medicare for All." That's why we cannot legitimize the real outside game. And I spoke to people at Workers' Strike Back. Many of them reached out to AOC and the establishment boutique left because they're not like us. They're not going after these people. They'd rather them join them. And they didn't hear anything back. What does that say? They're a professional organization who's trying to get shit done. So they're not going to say that. That's why it's my job. I'm gonna make the complaint that they're not going to make. Why didn't Bernie and AOC show up at Workers' Strike Back? They're trying to help Amazon make a national union. They had legit union organizers that showed up there, but But apparently that event is too small for the likes of AOC. they are above showing up in such things. But Key, I know you want to chime in. Feel free, brother. Go
No, that's okay. I mean, I think this was the design flaw of the 2020 Bernie campaign and why it peaked at 35 points. Is because the pool of people who they are enlisting to their cause is dominated by cowbell guy and the bullhorn guy. Like that's the pond you're fishing in. Now in 2016 he did better because that pond was bigger because there was just this populist zeitgeist, not just here but all around the world, right? That's why Brexit happened, right? And so there were more crossover voters, right? People who were maybe traditionally left but they saw something in Trump that they liked, so they went and voted for him. And the opposite happened. I knew a lot of Republicans who voted for Sanders in the 2016 race. And a lot of them went back to Trump when it was over. But that 2016 primary represented a sort of reshuffling of the deck, right? Where you could actually go outside of the traditional two-party demographic. By 2020, the chips have already settled. That's one of the reasons why there wasn't that populist magic behind Bernie 2020, because in 2016, a lot of those really sort of rugged populist types who voted for Bernie, a lot of them defected to Trump in the general in 2016, and now they're Trump voters. So they were no longer available to Sanders then. And so what, and you know, I'm making a sort of reference to the campaign, but at this point, like, why doesn't Bernie or AOC show up at the Workers' Strike Back event? Because they know where their bread is buttered now. They know who their voters are now, and their voters are not at those events now. Their voters are the foghorn, bullhorn guy. That's one of the reasons why we felt so strongly about posting that video, because we really felt that those people represent a huge swath of people who there is this illusion amongst progressive media that we can reach. And as you can see very clearly in that video, that they cannot be reached.
Yeah, and once again, there was Shama that was booked on Nina Turner's show, because I'm sure Nina Turner had a leftist intern that was like, "Yo, I don't know if you guys heard Shama, she's on point." It's like, so the young intern booked Shama Sawant, and everything was lined up, and then all of a sudden they canceled.
Really? I hadn't heard about that.
Once again, they are above saying making complaints about such things. But when I hear these stories, when I'm talking to these people in Seattle, that really makes that should raise maximum suspicion So maybe the producer, they saw, well, Shama Swan, let's see who this is. They looked up, saw her criticism of AOC and the Democratic Party, and they was like, what the fuck are you doing inviting someone like this on the show? Probably reprimanded the intern.
Well,
so why are they afraid of someone like Shama, who's way more polite than we are?
Because in the end, it's a big club. You know, on the one hand, Nina can challenge them up to a point, but she already proved the last time she campaigned. There's that line she won't go over. Once you go over that line, there's no coming back. You're nadered. That was what made the Bernie campaign in the end a monumental waste of time.
Russ, are you saying that she's not unbossed? Are you? Or is that what you're saying? How dare y'all will not allow you to slander a black woman?
See, she's still in a position where she can moderate and go to a place where they'll find her more acceptable. But when you burn them in a certain way, when you burn them the way I still don't understand why she did this. When you burn them the way Donna Brazile did, there's no coming back. They will never let Donna Brazile come to the prom again. The Mean Girls have kicked her out. I don't get it.
And Nina's sad. Nina's story is sad because I will make the argument that she's on that list. That's why it's sad that Nina still tried to crawl. Because even though we don't like her, she's 100% on that list. The Democrats and the liberals can't stand her. Even the Justice Democrats and the Progressive Caucus refuse to support her over Shontel Brown. Despite all my criticism, I will 100% admit Democrats hate her because of the Hillary Clinton thing. That's the whole origin of Donna's Twitter, because she was supposed to speak at the DNC in 2016, and they ghosted her, left donuts at her office, and that birthed Donna's Twitter because liberals were mocking the fact that Nina Turner didn't get the invite. So she's hated by the Democrats. That's why it's even more pathetic when she still grovels to them. She's still weak on the Democrats and the progressives who didn't endorse her. She's more upset at that RBN, who she unfollowed and blocked. She's more upset at Jimmy Dore than the progressives who betrayed her by refusing to support her over Shontel Brown. But sorry, Russell, she is not unbossed, and that showed their weakness.
Well, that's like Elizabeth Warren, who stepped a little bit outside the box, just a little bit, and they didn't give her shit. They gave her nothing for it. So if you're right, for a figure like Nina Turner to try to kiss their asses, what do you think they're going to give you? Like, what do you think you're going to get out of it? But I think she feels like she's not completely out of bounds yet. Remember, she was a politician in good standing in Ohio. She wasn't like known as this firebrand radical. That's one of the reasons they had to pull out all the stops to crush her campaign, because she wasn't really thought of that way in Ohio as this radical politician.
She remembered the good days of the establishment being nice to her, and then that's why she still can't believe they're not accepting her, because despite the meltdown that Nina people had at me after I was on Jamie and roasted her after a few of our segments, the establishment was way meaner than Nina Turner than we was. Like, you saw the attacks that she had. But they were more upset at us. Ask yourself why. But I want to show you guys this because I previewed this at the beginning of the show, because this gets into a whole nother conversation. This is the conversation I had with Ryan Grimm that I really hope he followed through on, because I brought up their failed strategy, which I think needs a reckoning. And I think RBN is that reckoning. Unlike the boutique Bernie Sanders industrial complex, we are 100% post Bernie Sanders. We started after Super Tuesday. We didn't.
Well,
go ahead.
Where shows like ours, where the result, in a lot of respects, of all these shows like TNT, of Kyle, of Secular Talk, they're making their money now. They're on their money. They're look. We've talked about this on the show too. These guys are some of the luckiest motherfuckers on earth. Now, TYT, they have some talent. Kyle, if Kyle's got in this game today, he'd have 3 people watching him, and 2 of them would be his relatives.
Definitely David
Nobody
Dole.
would watch that. David Dole too. They all got in early enough, and they rode those campaigns to 1 million subscribers or so. And now in my video that you showed a little bit of, where I broke down how Kyle sat there and just lied to his audience for a half an hour straight. Now these guys are just greedy. Like, look,
Yeah.
look how much money you're making. You're making
Yeah.
more money than I'm sure you ever dreamed you were going to make doing this. You making enough money to be honest. Why don't you just play it straight?
Right.
You won the lottery. You got in on this early before YouTube started messing with algorithms, making it hard for political shows to break out while people were really invested in this new left movement and they were going to YouTube. You got lucky, man. You got lucky. You're making all that money. What if you lost half your subscribers? You're still going to be set. You're still going to be set. So why can't you play it straight? Why can't you play it honest? Shows like
he wouldn't even make less money if he lost half of his subscribers, because I think only about 10% of his subs actually watch the show. He's got like 1 million subs, and his view counts are fairly low. Yeah.
Well, that's true for all these guys. Majority report
yeah.
they got over 1 million subscribers. You look at their view counts, it's like 15,000. Usually,
they got a head start, and they already fumbling the ball.
That's it.
Because people, as we said, it's the reckoning. People see the failed strategy, and they're mostly. And RBN and you guys and Jimmy have been forcing this conversation of this reckoning on these people that led us off a cliff. These people who advocated for pushing Biden left, and this is the result. And among many, he took COVID relief funds, sent to the police. Yeah, this headline right here: Biden is moving right on immigration. You had the Willow Project. So my tweet to remind you guys. Put Biden left is the worst age political tactic of my lifetime, and everyone who pushed this should never be taken seriously again. So I love saying this because it's always get a good response. It's always make the people because it's always me actually being. This is me being nice, but people know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't have to say any names. I just said anyone who advocated pushing Biden left shouldn't be taken seriously again. I love tweeting that out because every time I do, the people who are guilty of it, they come right out the woodwork.
Yeah.
As if I'm personally accusing them because they got a guilty conscience. Because everyone knows what I'm talking about here, and that's why people can't stand my. There's so many people that upset at my Twitter feed. I don't go after people. I'll just be vibing. I'll just be vibing, talking shit about the establishment, calling out people. But people know who I'm talking about. So people like Ryan Grimm, who responds here. Because he may have friends that did this, or maybe know people that did this, or may endorse the strategy. But he says, serious question: what is the purpose of mass politics if not to shape conditions in order to push politicians left, or is there some other trick? So what he's saying is, I know we put this dumb strategy where if we're gonna pledge our vote for Joe Biden, and some reason he's gonna turn to progressive 40 years in the game. I saw stuff. I saw stuff that made no sense. And I am thinking outside myself here. And Keaton, Russell, CJ, tell me if this makes sense. If you are to my right, because I can do it either way, and you agree with voting for Joe Biden because Donald Trump is the worst thing democracy ever seen, but you are progressive, you're a quote-unquote socialist, but you got Trump derangement syndrome. Why is it a good strategy for you 6 months before the election to make Twitter posts, make videos, selfie videos? Well, I'm talking about, I know I don't like Joe Biden, but I pledge my support for Joe Biden. I'm gonna bite the bullet, and I'm gonna vote for Joe Biden. And I saw people tweeting this out May of that year.
Right.
And I'm like, what sense does that make? You pledging your support to a party without making any demands whatsoever. So Democrats in the establishment, they see that, they're like, oh, that's easy.
Right.
Easy money. Right. So if you guys know what I would do if I was more shit-libby and I fell for Trump derangement syndrome, if I was a Bernie bro who wanted to vote for Joe Biden, I would be like, no, I ain't voting for Joe Biden unless we get Medicare for all. You better support defund, please vote, end the wars. I will never vote for Democrats. I will never vote for Democrats. Then right when the election comes out, God damn it.
Right.
Take that shit to the grave. What? And I'm asking you, what benefit does it have for our movement, for the people, which like all the TYT leftists, all the progressives, all the Bernie people, they keep making these tweets declaring their support for Biden.
Well, yeah, I mean, you touched on it right there. I mean, that's 100% right. And what Ryan Grimm tweeted back at you also reveals the very problem that you are talking about. He says, well, what's the point of mass politics if not to push, mainstream figures in, whatever direction that the mass movement wants them pushed? Well, the obvious question there, the obvious follow-up is, What mass politics are you talking about? What mass movement are you talking about? There is no mass movement. If you wanted to bet, you had an opportunity for a mass movement. You had 1 million people volunteer for the Bernie campaign, and then you had Barack Obama make a couple of phone calls to a couple of candidates, and poof, that all went away. Now, it didn't have to go away. If Bernie had held out, if Bernie had actually led that mass movement outside of the jurisdiction, shall we say, of the DNC, but he chose not to do that. He chose to endorse Joe Biden in mid-April. In fact, I think it was April 10th. I'm pretty sure it was 3 years ago to the day.
You could feel his balls shrinking up the second Super Tuesday was over.
But he just absolutely movement is what I'm saying. Like, there went the opportunity for mass politics. Right. So what are you talking? What mass? Show me the mass movement. What, the fucking Intercept email list is a mass movement? Like, what? Where is it? Where is it? It's nowhere. It's nowhere.
It's a mass movement that never talks to workers. It's a mass movement that never plans and gets all of their millions of followers out. It's a mass movement that votes for Ukraine. It's a mass movement that does everything to show you they're not progressive, but they keep saying, "Come on, man, don't blame us. We just trying stuff." And that's kind of like what Ryan Grimm is doing here. He's trying to pull the AOC argument of, my bad. We were just trying things. We're trying different things. Right. And it's as if the working class, the poor, has infinite resources like they do. And it's almost like it's to the point where they know they're not actually trying to solve problems. Because if you are canceling Shama Sawant, if you're about workers, why are you canceling Shama Sawant for? You're about workers as long as those workers are for the Democratic Party. That's a different conversation. And all these people who push workers, like the Crystal Balls, the Nina Turners who do this too, the Jan Perlmans, workers. They're literally talking about workers as long as they're talking about the Democratic Party.
Yeah, people who organize with Democrats. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why he defended the squad so vigorously against Shama. That's why that debate, I think it was the Brianna Joy Gray show, whatever it was, went pretty viral. Yeah. Because look, I mean, he is maintaining the idea. Look, there's the sense amongst these people that the squad, for all their failings, is the best we've got. They're the best we can do. And so, and here's where the divide really sets in. Because they're the best we can do, we must invest in them, and we must spin this narrative that progress is possible through them. Because the alternative, which is that progress is not possible, it's not possible. We've lost. We are in despair. We are in collapse. That is not a palatable narrative to consumers of their media, right?
Yes.
They don't have working class consumer bases. So the idea that this is all fucked and it's all going to hell, they can't sell that to their subscriber list. They can't. Whereas I feel like
they can't be out drinking a latte. You're like, this shit is going to hell. They're like, wait,
exactly. But that's the main point, because when you actually cultivate a working class audience, working class people can deal with despair. Working class people live in despair. They live in despair. And so it's not this terrifying thing to think that everything is going to hell. It's not scary. It doesn't turn off a working class audience the way it does a progressive, more PMC oriented audience, which is the kind of audience that these creators and these writers build on platforms like The Intercept or TYT, right? I mean, that's once again where their bread is buttered. And so there are certain narratives, certain red pills that are just too strong for their consumers to take. And so they can't feed it to them. Therefore, AOC, it was an error in judgment to vote to break up a rail strike. Oh, they fell for it. They thought the Senate was going to pass it. Well,
wait till you see your new talking
point. They're young. Hey, they're young. They're learning. Give them 20 years. Stay subscribed to my magazine for 20 more years, and we'll teach AOC to get the votes right. That's the narrative that works. It's the narrative that keeps them in business.
This is why I want Ryan Grimm to I had no interest in having him on show, but he need to invite me on his show so I can explain this to his audience, because he's I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna continue on past you, Russell, but he's perplexed by the solutions that I proposed here to you guys. I'm gonna explain to you guys now. But Russell, you want to chime in before I get back to that? Russell, you want to chime in real quick?
Well, I want to address something you said before about why do they give up the game months before the election, saying, no, don't worry, we will bend the knee to Joe Biden, but for right now, we're with Sanders. Because most of these progressive activists, they're not working class people. And they need to signal to their class that they're not a threat. They don't want to get ostracized from their class. So they feel a need to tell their class, yeah, I know you don't like Bernie, but don't worry. No, I'm with you. In the end, I'm going to vote blue no matter who. Don't ostracize me. Don't make me face social or professional consequences. And that's why you can't build anything with these people.
Bro, so you had these people, they were selling out for likes and retweets on Twitter. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this era, the 2020 post Super Tuesday era, where every week there'd be another leftist who breaks. Who said, "Oh, I've seen enough."
I remember.
Anyone who's on Twitter in 2020, you guys remember this era.
I remember this.
Yes. I've seen enough. I know I don't like Joe Biden, but Trump is a danger to our democracy. Joe Biden, and every time they did it, they would get 15,000 likes on those tweets.
They did it in 2016 too. 2016 too. How many Bernie people did you see posting their hashtag "I'm with her"?
Yeah.
Right.
They do it for social clout within the liberal establishment. You put it better than I do when they signaling to their class interests that they are still on board. Now, to my point earlier regarding movement building, I'm gonna get back to the Ryan Grimm point because I'll pull the tweet back up because his argument is that we push the idea of pushing Biden left because that is our attempt at building mass politics that puts the Democratic Party left. And I'm like, Ryan Grimm, my argument is, I understand that you guys are attempting mass politics, but I told you guys beforehand, your strategy is a dumb one, which will lead the Democratic Party shifting to the right. I tried to explain it to Voss's audience. I wasn't civil enough, so the point flew over their head. If you pledge their support 3 months out, why would they do anything for you? Now compare that to the demographic that Democrats do everything for. White women who Donald Trump won 2 elections in a row. Don't let people get twisted. They say women is against Trump. You're talking about black women. White women voted for him twice.
No.
So what do suburban white women say? Suburban white women say shit like this. We are worried about crime. We are worried about the leftward drift of the Democratic Party. So then Democrats, they chased their votes. Yeah, Joe Biden on the debate stage, like, oh, I promise I'm gonna fund the police more than Donald Trump. Yep. Suburban white women, please love me. You guys see the difference in strategy? The suburban white women who know their class interests also align with Republicans, they hedging their vote. They're like, which one of you guys gonna chase my class interest here? And whenever Democrats, whenever they're like, oh my God, the Democrats, their message on defund police is scaring me. I will not vote for you. And that's why they running as pro cops now, because white women as a demographic know how to wedge their power. Guess who don't know how to do that? Black people in the left. Black people give up their vote every election, and then they're like, "Oh my God, why the black community ain't getting shit?"
Well, but Trump did do better with people of color.
He did. Yes,
he did. I see it living in Harlem. When I was going around in 2016 campaigning for Bernie, the feedback that I got that was contrary more often than no, I'm voting for Hillary. I got that from the older black ladies. The young black men, no, I'm voting for Trump. This was this untold story of this support for Trump in that community that nobody wanted to talk about because it didn't fit the narrative.
And to Russell's point, Biden did worse among black people than any Democrat did in the modern era. The only Democrat president who didn't get 90% black vote, surprisingly enough, is Bill Clinton. Since the 70s,
really?
You know that? The person that was sold as the first black president, he folded. I mean, I purposely looked this up one day. He had like 84 to 85%. And then you had Barack Obama hit like 95%.
First,
Hillary
92 and 96.
Yeah. I'm gonna fact check myself, but I looked that up a long time ago. He had like 85, 84%. Black people voted against Reagan around 90% rate. Barack Obama had 9%. You had Kerry got 90%, Al Gore 90%, and then Joe Biden was the first person until Bill Clinton that got under 90%. So there is black people who have fallen off in the Democratic Party, But to me, that means nothing if they just going back to the Republican Party.
Sure.
And that what you see a lot of times, and that's what's kind of depressing to me. I am more heartened by the young Black activists and Black people who are leading the way towards socialist movements, and people who realize by giving our vote 90% clip at Democratic Party, they have no reason to give us gains, no reason to give us stuff. Yeah, was it Lawrence O'Donnell who famously said you got to show you are not willing to vote for these people for them to give you stuff. So that was my obvious message to these people. And I told them beforehand, you are not the shit this party left. If you're writing op-eds about why the left should bite the bullet and vote for Joe Biden, making Twitter posts that go viral that get 15,000 likes, give you 1,000 vote blue no matter who resist followers. And then once again, I cannot stress enough how much I disagree with voting for Biden. But even looking at their perspective, it doesn't make sense. Hold that vote to your grave and fight, and then give it up if you're scared as shit. What they was doing made no sense to me at all. So
this is the ultimate irony. Sorry, go ahead.
My bad, Ken. I'll pass.
No. I didn't mean to cut you off
here, because he was demanding an answer. I said I'll read the tweet again because you guys don't remember. He said, "Serious question: what is the purpose of mass politics if not to shape the conditions in order to push politicians left, or is there some other trick, like some magic trick?" So what I said the tactic of endorsing and pledging your vote for Biden was an obviously bad approach that will lead to the continued rightward drift of the Democratic Party. That is what I predicted, and the people who advocated otherwise still won't admit they're wrong to this day. In fact, they about to do the same thing again.
Well, Marianne, Williamson.
Same thing again. So after that obvious checkmate, because I don't understand the point of these questions, he just pivots. He says, so your plan was to withhold your vote in November 2020. What's next? As if he don't know. As if he didn't hear RBN before. So this is concern trolling. Guys, this is concern trolling. Mm-hmm. Ryan Graham has followed me for 2 years now. He's been on RBN. He know who RBN is. He knows exactly what our answer is. This is concern trolling that they constantly do when people criticize the strategy of going within the Democratic Party. Oh, we shouldn't vote for Joe Biden. What's your answer then? And let me say something. I have an answer, as you guys see, but I'm gonna raise the bar. If you don't have an answer to that question, that does not delegitimize your obvious complaints of running within the Democratic Party.
Exactly.
If you don't know, because that's a very legitimate answer. What should we do then if voting for Joe Biden is not worth it? I don't know shit. That's a legitimate answer.
Yeah, that's like saying a person can identify that this capitalist system is terrible, but then you say, what should we do? They can say, I don't know. That doesn't delegitimize the fact that capitalism and this system is terrible.
Think. They say that all the time to me, guys.
Well, that's because
how many times you guys got that response?
Well, because
if your assessment is right, then what do you think we should do then? What will you? They always say this. But Ken, go ahead. I know you want to chime in.
Well, no, but that because they need to push the idea that there is a plan out there that will get us to a better world. And what if there isn't? Like you said, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. What if we have no plan? If we have no plan, that doesn't make your plan any better. That's like saying we're going to build a ladder into heaven. And you say, well, you can't get to heaven that way. So, all right, well, then what's your plan to get to heaven? Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't, even if you don't have one, that doesn't mean you can build a ladder up there, right? Like, it's not a legitimate comeback. But this goes back to, like, their audience cannot process that there might not be a plan. Their audience cannot handle emotionally the very possibility that we might just be going one way the wrong way. Like they can't take that.
Well,
go ahead, Russell.
There's like when Crystal kind of obliquely referenced you guys after your Marianne interview. And they're the adults in the room, right? If you want to build power, oh, really? Is that what you've done? You have elected a president in response to a president that you spent 4 years calling a racist, legitimately, who has done more damage to the Black community, arguably, than any other living politician. That is who you put up as your president. So this is the power that you're building. This is the adults thing that we end up with when we follow this logic? Is this building power? What power exactly are we building? They never get to that part. This is the adult move. What's the result?
Yeah, well said. And there's so many layers to this question. And that's why I'm like, why are we having this conversation on Twitter? You got a YouTube page. I got a YouTube page. Why are we wasting time here? Because this question is so ridiculous. There's so many layers of this question on why it's ridiculous. As Super Chat left over earlier, withholding your vote is a legitimate strategy and tactic as well. And even if I don't have a legitimate response to what's next, that does not mean you guys are wrong by supporting and voting a party led by Jim Crow Joe.
That'd be like this. Let me give an analogy. Let's say you're stranded in the woods and you go, here's some poison ivy we can eat. Like they go, I don't want no poison ivy. And they go,
well, you
got something else to eat? Like that doesn't make poison ivy.
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
Like
exactly.
it is such a, but it's something that does work on people who don't sit there and really analyze it. They'll go, wow, I don't have an answer, but he has an answer. Or I guess I'll just eat this poison ivy. You get what I'm saying? Like it's something we have to instill in people that, hey, this not having an answer to a falling and failing collapsing system doesn't mean to stay with the collapsing system. That doesn't mean that. So to whoever wants to
so I feel free to chime in anytime, guys. This is a fun conversation.
In a lot of respects, our problem is that we do not have a working class movement. And this isn't actually a new problem. You can go back and find the 60s radicals and organizers also complaining about that. That was always a problem for radical movements, or in modern times, it's been a problem for radical movements in the United States, that they don't have a working class. Because for these people, they're playing politics. They're cosplaying politics. It doesn't really affect them. It doesn't really matter for them. It's Lululemon for them. It's a lifestyle brand. It's a pose. There are no consequences for winning and losing. It's just about their self-image, which is also part of why you can never persuade them of anything, because to change their mind would be to question their own identities. They're playing out a psychodrama. They're not really invested in politics because they don't personally have material conditions that politics can solve, as Keaton often says.
Yes, well said, Russell. And once again, there's so many layers of why this is wrong, because it also show the short-sighted thinking of PMCs like Ryan Graham, which is why I told him it's better for you to invite me on your show so I can explain this to you guys. People are dying. How many people have died since the start of the Bernie movement because they didn't have healthcare? I don't have healthcare. I'm fucking winging it. I'm like, damn, hopefully my years of training and eating were right before my later age is paid off. That's my plan, guys. But what's the plan for the person who's gone homeless? My brothers, by the way. My cousins who's struggling right now. Mm-hmm. I have a relative, I'm not going to say who they are, whose wages are garnished right now, who's struggling because they have medical debt. Mm. We had to loan them a lot of money. The family pulled the money together so they can help feed themselves. They took all their check away because of medical debt.
All right.
So it's literally traumatizing. So the question that people like Ryan Graham, people who survive right now, think they don't even cross their mind is, how do we even survive day to day, let alone elections? You see how Ryan Graham immediately go to election. What about survival, Ryan? AOC
this is why your strategy, if you're not struggling for the things that you're supposedly fighting for, this changes your strategy.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? This changes your strategy. So this is what so to your point, I'm sorry to cut you off, Nick, but to Russell's point earlier about the working class, I always play this clip and I've already queued it up. Listen to what Vivek says to Michael Brooks, and I always play this because this is the PMC class. It's not so they can't challenge the reference, the person, the source. And let's listen.
The left in the United States is fundamentally and overwhelmingly a middle class formation. It is not it's the first left globally, historically, that has no connection to the working class, to the poor at all. People complain that the left is white. Bullshit. That's a second. The left has those non-whites who are in the American left are all middle class too.
Right.
It's disproportionately white, but it's all middle class, regardless of its color. In that setting, when you're only bringing in middle class people into your organization, a big chunk of them are going to say, we don't want to hear about poverty. We don't want to hear about the economy. What we want to know is, when we walk into a room, why are we not treated well?
Isn't that essentially the description
That's it.
of the entire Bernie Sanders industrial complex and all the people that are like them, the gatekeeping, national DSA, because there are some good local DSA, national DSA types. They're not. They give it like public acknowledgement, whatever it is, but it's never full-throated. And this is why at RBN we've been saying, like, we have to stop listening to the professional managerial class. We even had a professor on here, Catherine Liu from the University of Irvine, who wrote a book, The Case Against the Professional Managerial Class, and she's a professional managerial class member herself, and she's against it. But to the point, and then I'll pass it back to you, to all of you, but to Vivek's point, they're not concerned about poverty. They're not concerned about police brutality. This is why Sam Cedar will go, I don't care how much the state is getting money. They don't care, because none of those things affect them. I'll pass it to you, Nick. It looks like you want to chime in.
Yeah, and I'll bring all those things up before I got to my response to show you why there's so many layers to attack this. Because the prime criticism that we have is that when we spend $400 million on the Bernie campaign over 5 years, and that only amounts to hiring a bunch of PR agents for the Democratic Party. My question is, especially as someone who was complicit in that in some way, as someone who was part of the Bernie Sanders campaign, I look at that, I'm like, dude, imagine what we could have did with the money I spent on plane tickets, the money we spent on lodging for traveling with Bernie campaign. Imagine these resources were spent on food banks, strike actions, taking care of people, rent, feeding people for there's so many things we could have done. This thing I learned by trial by error. I fucked up, guys. I learned from that. Meanwhile, Ryan Graham and the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, they are still in 2015 because Ryan Graham is a millionaire by pushing this strategy. You guys understand? So here's my response. I hyped it enough. He said, so what's your plan to he said, so you plan to withhold your vote in 2020, what next? He already knows. So I said, building a third-party movement by engaging in mutual aid, direct action, and this is the important part because this is talking about survival, showing that we are here for the workers, the people who are struggling. We shouldn't waste our money propping up the careers and the book tour of Marianne fucking Williamson. How about showing up the people communities, supporting Tour for the Poor, and build a third party based upon that? Focus on survival, showing up and providing for people material needs as capitalism is continuing to fail. Then take those people who are fired up, because this will happen every Tour for the Poor, every time we organize that worker strike back. People are fired up, and you build connections, networks, and you build your third party that way, putting in the work.
Right.
And there are a lot of people respond like, "What does that mean?"
Well, yeah, because the language they speak. Look, I mean, I've said this a few times. They are invested in building narratives, and they need big macro narratives. They need dramatic story arcs to sell their content. That's what they need. They need the presidency. Mutual aid is wonderful for the people receiving mutual aid, but carrying a case of water to East Palestine, Ohio, or to Flint, Michigan, so that people who need water there can drink water, that's a very, very noble thing to do. It's certainly 1,000 times more noble than donating to the Marianne Williamson presidential campaign, but it doesn't build the kind of story arc that a presidential campaign builds. And because these people don't actually have real skin in the game, this is all very low stakes to them and the people they deal with on a day-to-day basis. They are invested in selling their audience a big dramatic story. They need a story. Mutual aid does not tell the same kind of story as a presidential campaign. A presidential campaign is an epic struggle. It's a saga with chapters, and there are debates, and there are press conferences, there are developments, twists and turns. Mutual aid is that sort of very sort of tedious slow drudge work that makes a real difference to people, but it's not as chock full of conflict, right? It's not dramatic, right? Like, what would an audience want to watch?
Yep.
Would an audience want to watch Rome build his library, or would an audience, a TV audience, want to watch Marianne Williamson debate RFK Jr. and debate Joe Biden? That's what this is. This is entertainment. It's TV. It's storytelling. And storytelling relies on conflict. And a lot of the stuff you're talking about is just real work that takes real time, but it just doesn't deliver that same drama, that a lot of these outlets crave. And the thing that you were talking about, Nick, about the very real struggles of people, family members and things like this, like that struggle is, it's scarier in a way for people who are experiencing it, but it's also less scary in another way for people who are living it. Like, yes, practically speaking, physically, like materially, it's terrifying to be homeless, right? But conceptually, if you're homeless, you know what you're in for. You're experiencing it every day. There's a sense that you can manage it, even though it's awful. To a guy like Ryan Grimm, homelessness is a theoretical thing, right? It's a theoretical thing, and therefore it's almost scarier to people who will never experience it because they're not familiar with what it is. And so in their mind, there must be a way forward. And that leads them to insist that there are certain ways out of this crisis that we're in that are not actually real, because they just wish cast the idea that there must be a way out. There must be a way out. Whereas when you're actually living it, maybe you don't think there's a way out, and that's terrible, but it's also less scary because you're there.
Yeah.
You know it. I mean, I hope point. I did a good job sort of.
That's a great breakdown. Go ahead.
It's a tough point to make, so I hope I didn't. Yeah.
I mean, to put that another way, or to take another angle on it, if this were to actually develop into a real working class movement, a real left movement, and people were to actually open their eyes, they would lose their positions. They are deeply invested in maintaining this status quo in the end. Some of them consciously, some of them unconsciously. The last thing they want is for this arrangement to change. And nothing illustrates that more than to, with a straight face, go out there and tell people that getting behind some prosperity gospel spouting hippie is the adult thing to do. That is how invested they are in maintaining things as they are. Because think about it. If everybody were really to wake up, who's going to listen to Ryan Grimm? Who's going to listen to Crystal Ball? Who's going to listen to TYT? They need this movement to remain as ineffectual and as unconscious as it is to maintain their positions.
And I brought this up just to quickly insert this, since we're kind of talking about it. And this is one thing that they're laying their hat on right now. They kind of move from thing to thing. Before it was like, oh, y'all won't even cover her, and look what Karine Jean-Pierre said. Now, then they went from that island to this island of, she got 10%, she doubled her, but without talking about the poll, without going into the poll. And you mentioned Peter Dow earlier, and here's his tweet. He says, Democrats want someone other than Biden. Marianne Williamson at 10% in any poll this early is very telling. Now, he's still, maybe it's subconsciously or not, he's still able to craft a sentence that tells you nothing, but it's a lot of words. Like, very telling is really not telling you anything about what he thinks about it, but that's beyond the point. Now, let's look at the poll. 10%, 63%. Now, just based off of that, that's a 63% lead. I would not be jumping. But what I did is I clicked on it, because you can click on this poll and do a deep dive on what actually is this poll about. So let's go to my tweet, where I actually look at the poll, and let's break it down. The poll's at 10%, but the 10% is made up of 7% who will say probably, So all they did was add probably together with people who said definitely Marianne Williamson, and they said, oh, together 10%, and they're just running with it. 10%, she did not double her support. The other thing that they skip over, and I don't even know if they understand this mathematically, the margin of error is larger than the people who say definitely Marianne Williamson. The margin of error is 3.8. The people who say Marianne Williamson is 3%. Now you see how that poll that they're trying to look at this poll, and like she did a tweet and retweeted this, quote tweeted this, and got something like a lot of people, 4,000 or 5,000 people who liked it, and it's obviously a joke. Now, and then there's another person on there. I know all of us know her. Her name is Bernie Identity. I couldn't find her tweet, but they love to do this. Yeah, they love to do this. They go, Bernie Sanders was at 10%. Bernie Sanders had 10% with several other people in the race. That's what you keep not included in that, which makes a difference. If there's 5 people in a race and somebody pulls 10% with 5 people in a race, that is pretty decent. If there's 2 people in the race and you're pulling 10%, that is not equivalent. And
also, how are you gonna make a Bernie movement when even Bernie's not on board?
Exactly.
Like,
this is
the Bernie movement. All the progressive politicians.
Progressives are not even down. Nina Turner, AOC, Bernie Sanders are not even down. And I'll pass to you, Nick, or whoever wanted to chime in. They're on the poll on Marianne Williamson's polling. Had you been hearing about this, guys? Had you been hearing?
Yeah, no, I heard it. Yeah, I heard. No, yeah, 10%.
Covered it. Everybody, she's
I know.
Go ahead.
we all got owned when Marianne cracked double digits in a poll, right?
That's it.
We all got served on that day.
I'm eating crow.
Exactly.
I'm pulling on those clown shoes now.
The other thing that it's important to note here is that Joe Biden has not declared yet. Once Joe Biden declares, that's it. The party coalesces behind Joe Biden. A lot of these people who are entertaining other options are doing so in the hopes that they can sort of convince Joe Biden not to run. Once he's the candidate, he's the candidate. He's the incumbent president. This is how it always works. These are Democratic voters we're talking about. First of all, Democrats don't vote for who they want to vote for. They vote for who their media tells them they have to vote for. I mean, on the issues, they were very much against Biden in all the polls. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These people are
that's it.
Like dogs to vote for how the party bosses and the party media apparatus tells them to. So this is I just don't understand. This is why I know, CJ, you played the clip of me very exasperated to say Marianne Williamson's a fucking.
Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Just the pain in my expression.
That's my favorite part.
because I don't understand how you could be up for this a third time. How could you be up for this a third time? Who wants to do this a third time? It's amazing to me.
Well, nobody does, and that's why she's polling at that level once you break it down. And what little probably they're getting, these are a few people who Democrats in general is different than it was with Hillary. You had your Hill bots, you had your real, and still do, your real Hillary cultists. The only people I've ever met who actually like Joe Biden are like 70. Like, I don't know a lot of Democrats who don't feel like they have to qualify their support of Joe Biden with I don't like him. So he doesn't. That's the only reason you're even getting that. But in the end, you cannot build a political project inside of a party where MSNBC has a veto on your choices. That is what we saw once and for all, Super Tuesday, when Barack Obama made a few phone calls and destroyed months of work. All these poor bastards going out and marching in the snow in New Hampshire. By the time you got to 2020, I had wised up. I was giving a monthly donation just on general principles, but I didn't phone bank. I didn't knock on doors. I didn't do any of what I did in 2016 because at that point I knew they will not let this man be the president, no matter what. It doesn't matter what they have to do. So just to support the dream of it, I'll make a monthly donation to the effort, but that's all I'm doing. But if anyone had any doubts about that, the Monday Night Massacre, as I call it, should have cleared that up. Yeah. Well, listen, you got to vote for Joe. You got to vote for Joe. You got to throw your support behind Joe. That's it. Months of work.
Exactly.
Months of work just went down the drain with a few phone calls.
That was the point I was about to make regarding the polling story, CJ. And that's why it's hilariously sad that Marianne Williamson people are looking at this national poll and using this as hopium. Guys, I have a question for you guys. What state is first?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
South Carolina.
Right.
So what the hell does this national poll mean?
Nothing.
So if you are someone who's challenging an incumbent president in a campaign that is largely mocked by the establishment, a campaign that is considered largely illegitimate by the establishment, what do you need to do immediately in that election to make it so you have a chance? You need to make your campaign immediately legitimate. And you can challenge a president, incumbent. The theory is if you pick off the first few states, you can then say, "Oh, I'm the starring candidate. Thus run me." That's like the only way to defeat an incumbent. Is it likely? No, but that's the theory. If you can pick out the first few states, if you're super popular, fam, South Carolina is gonna hit. Marianne Williamson is gonna lose by 80 points. Then the media be like, "Look at me, she lost by 80 points. Throw it away," and then no momentum. Bernie Sanders lost with momentum. He won the first 3 states in dominant fact. Well, Iowa was bullshit, right? But Nevada was dominant. He came off a dominant Nevada victory, and then they pulled South Carolina, and he lost. So Marianne Williamson, after getting destroyed in South Carolina, is somehow going to turn it around.
Well, that's why it all comes back. It all comes back to the cowbell people. I saw some people in the chat earlier call them the Cowbell Left. I think that's a great.
That's a good name.
I hope that name is on. I like that. The Cowbell Left. Because the thing is, when a party is dominated by people like that who trust the mainstream media at levels that are just way out of sync with the general population, like the mainstream media has a 30% trust rating amongst the general public, but a 70% trust rating within the Democratic Party primary voters. What that tells you is you can't actually build grassroots momentum. The only way to build momentum is to get the media on your side, which Marianne Williamson is never going to be able to do. Never. I mean, there was one Political article that came out about her, throwing cell phones at people and slamming doors on her hand and all this shit. That was one article. She gets anywhere near considerability. I'm not even talking about anywhere near Joe Biden. I'm just talking about she gets anywhere close to the point where it makes people go, wait a minute, let's turn a second eye. Forget it, man. The onslaught against her is going to be so ruthless that she won't last a minute because she doesn't have the kind of grassroots support that you would need to weather that. Bernie, did phenomenally well considering all that media opposition because he actually had a movement behind him. Marianne has a few YouTube personalities. I mean, that's it. That's all it is. It's nothing. It's nothing.
And aren't even legitimately behind her. They're just trying to get subs and money off of it.
True.
Look, even if we go totally crazy here, right? Even if we just go totally nuts, just completely delusional, even if we debase ourselves to suggest she wins the nomination, in what world are you living in that Marianne Williamson is going to beat Donald Trump in a general election or Ron DeSantis in a general election? Like, what country do you think you live in? What are you, insane?
When she said it on the Majority Report, or Kristen and Kyle, they asked her, "Do you think you can beat Biden?" Yes. Do you think you can beat Trump? Yes. Do you think you can beat DeSantis? Yes. With a straight face, they said this as they manufacture consent. Go ahead.
I'm gonna play this because I played this at the intro in the conversation with Kit, and you guys had an amazing video where you guys exposed these shit libs at this protest. I want you guys to speak on it, but if you guys are watching this confused about what you mean by the Cowbell Left, I'm showing this video because I saw this literally like 30 minutes before I got on stream. I'm like, this is good. So I'm playing this video, and I want you either Keaton or Russell can speak more about the event for people who don't know more about it. So here's the video.
Just flies all the time, no, just fly.
The Cowboy
all the time, no, just fly.
I could have used a little more cowbell. I gotta have more cowbell, baby.
What if you criticize Candace Owens?
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
That's the serious resistance army.
Yeah, that's them.
Now,
so do you think he'll be found guilty?
Before, but that came from this video. We called this shit. They couldn't even condemn George W. Bush. So I'll pass to either Keen or Russell. Do you want to speak more on?
Well, this was all Russ. Russ was
video?
there. I wasn't there. Russ did this himself. He found them himself. He did everything himself.
Yeah, I just went down there to cover this, and I had a theory from the beginning that if you ask the MAGA people and if you ask the liberals, should George Bush be arrested next, more of the MAGA people would support the idea than liberals, and that's exactly how it played out.
That's real citizen journalism. That's real citizen journalism right there. That's a great. That's because it shows a lot. This is the effect of the morning Joe propaganda. I'll let you just play a little bit play here, and then I'll let you speak more on it here.
We should arrest George Bush next.
Why? What is about this?
Why?
Why?
Well, but should we? I mean, if we're going to hold people accountable.
You know better than that.
You don't think we should?
I'm not going to be baited by you. I don't care what you think.
Okay, so you don't think we should arrest George Bush for war crimes?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. What do you think? Do you feel that he should be arrested?
If a grand jury of average New Yorkers indicts him, then he should be arrested. Exactly.
Well, you know, Michelle Obama called her partner in crime.
Oh, you're going after a black woman now, of course.
So do you think that's why?
You have to demonize the black woman.
See, I'll tell you, man, that's why I had enough of you guys attacking Nina Turner, attacking all these black women like Michelle Obama.
Right.
You see, that's always the go-to that they have. What would they say if that was me there? Making the obvious criticisms of these war criminals and their friends. But that's the first go-to. But I'll let you speak more on it, Russell and Ken. It was a great video.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's what they always go to whenever they can, because they don't have an economic theory. They don't have a class theory. They don't have a class politics. They only have an identity politics. And this idiot, actually, look, if I were in this video, I would hide out. I wouldn't want to draw attention to myself. He engaged us on Twitter. He outed himself.
Oh,
he was like,
oh yeah.
He was very proud of his performance.
He was first of all, he said, I said that if the ICC wants to prosecute him, they should, which first of all is a qualification. Like right here, I heard him say that. And I said, but what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think? Because all these libs are very involved in process.
Well,
they
just
the
defer to the
guardrails,
institutions,
defer to the
them.
institutions,
right.
to defer to the authorities. So he said that we cut around it. And I said to him, so in a video where you expose yourself as a moron for several minutes, you're going to respond by claiming that we edited around what you clearly say in the video.
Right, we didn't edit around it at all. I love how he pulls the bullhorn out of nowhere. It's like Looney Tunes. You know how in like a Looney Tunes cartoon, like Bugs Bunny, will
like if they pull out shit,
and he won't have anything, and then he'll just have it 1 second later for no reason. Like all of a sudden, the guy's talking, and then just the next second,
he's like, man, I got this horn just in case I want them pesky activists call me out.
Hey, can you play more of it? Can you rewind it? And
go ahead.
You show them one more. He takes the bullhorn out. It's like Bugs Bunny taking out
it, please. Yeah.
It's universally respected.
So that's the part when he was like, "How dare you criticize Michelle Obama? She one of the good ones."
And then on Twitter, somebody asked him about that, and he said, "You're taking it out of context. It's simply she was talking about how she's sitting next to him at funerals for years." She literally, the more damning part of that quote actually is, "I love him to death."
Right.
So basically, he was trying to say that no, what she's really saying is just that she gets along with him because that's not what she was saying.
She also said that the Obamas and the Bush family share values. You guys know that?
That one, I didn't even hear that one. No.
Yeah, she said that. Yeah, when it comes to value, we share the same value as families. That's why we are friends. That's her trying to rehabilitate George Bush because she's using her public image for God knows where the fuck reason. Michelle Obama is quite popular among the pop culture in America. So she trying to take advantage of that. She said, hey, if you like me, you should like George Bush because we had the same values.
Right.
That's the most damning quote because that shows her intent.
Forget those 500,000 Iraqi kids. Come on, this is George Bush. He smiles. He goes to baseball games. That's
well, that's all it took. He danced with Ellen a little bit, and but particularly Michelle Obama giving him her seal of approval.
Yeah, in the photo with the embrace, the hug.
That's it. With these libs, that's all it took. And now you talk to them, it's really like 1984, where things go down the pneumatic chute, and that's it. They go down the memory hole. They're not in your mind anymore. I've had libs say to me, George Bush was an honorable Republican you could have honest disagreements with. He never ruined Thanksgiving. Where the fuck were you in 2004? Where were you? What are you talking about? I bet that's what's crazy about it. These are the same people who were screaming from the rooftops about George Bush during those years. Same exact people. And they forgot. They just down the memory hole.
I want you guys take on this because I saw this years ago. I'm glad I found this because this was her response after the backlash. So it wasn't like she just said it from an interview. She had backlash. Look, after the controversy of him sitting with Ellen. So she was asking about that. She was asked about that backlash, and she responds, "Our values are the same." And I pulled a quote. This article goes in on them. This is all the friendly relationships between Michelle Obama and George Bush. Let's see. Here's the highlighted quote. She says, "Our values are the same." She said of herself and George W. Bush because both families have their patriarch is war criminals. We have family of war criminals. We got the same values. I remember that's why I never forget this story because that was my initial take. Like, why would you say that? You just admitted it. Oh yeah, Barack Obama, he drone strike and kill kids. He waged wars. We got the same value as George W. Bush. That's why we didn't prosecute him. But we prosecute Donald Trump. Surely that's not political. But anyway, let me finish the quote. I'll get you guys in. We disagree on policy, but we don't disagree on humanity. Look, this is PR bullshit.
That's amazing.
We don't disagree about love and compassion. I think that's true for all of us. It's just that we get lost in our fear of what's different. So your hatred of George Bush because you're afraid of what's different, Eden. You're afraid of what's different, Russell.
Nick, you're hurting me, man. You're hurting me. Who paid you to do that to me, man? That was like you just smacked me in the head with a shovel, man. I'm like,
I had fun.
I'm so angry right now about that quote.
I had fun reading that because I remind myself it's been years since I've seen it. I just had to fact check myself live. So I was like, damn, I can't believe you just said that again. That was one of the moments where it's like not like an accident. Like that's how you know there's a job being done. There's a psyop being done where Michelle, you're popular.
Right.
We gonna use you to clean. They're fucking friends. Get the fuck out. You guys really believe the WWE pro wrestling shit that Michelle Obama and George W. Bush are texting each other at night like fucking teenage girls? Get the fuck. You guys believe that? Like, I swear to God, they tell people the dumbest shit and people believe it. I know I got a lot today, but I got a few quick stories. But Keaton, Russell, anything else you want to chime in? I know you guys. I appreciate you guys sticking in with us for a while.
No, that's fine.
No, it's a lot of. I've been looking forward to this for a while. When I look at the views of people I know from different walks of life, I'm sorry. In the end, their attitudes break down much more along class lines than they do along any identity markers. Yeah. People of color that I know who are in the PMC have the same exact opinions as the white people I know in the PMC. So in the end, that's what I see here. Yes, like that symbolizes it right there. Michelle Obama, George Bush, they're of the same class. They have the same attitudes. That's it. They want us fighting a culture war so that we don't fight a class war, so that we don't notice that this is all really about class.
Well said. Now, just for a second, Tom, we'll move on. Because I got just two short stories. And see, I don't know if you have any other story.
I have some I can add in if needed, but it'll just go off time. We'll base it off time. So go ahead.
Yeah, this is a very short one. I want to get you guys' take on this because once again, very short segment. If you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook or social media, heads up, 2024 is coming. Shit's gonna get really bad, really quick. You're gonna have all of the DNC bots out in force. All the social media influencers out in force. So I call this segment, CJ. You have NAFO has gone domestic. If you guys don't know, the North Atlanta Fellas Organization, that was their testing operation. That's the troll farm that they all just so happen to be Democrats too. Not all these people with Ukraine flags, they're not independents, they're not Republicans, they stand for Ukraine. They all Democrats. Just so happened on Twitter. Now I'll put a story because once again, this is a very short story. I just want to get your guys' take on because this show how desperate Democrats are. NAFO has gone domestic. Biden will lead on an army of social media influencers, which may get their own briefing room in the White House. Boy, Voxbot, move up in the world to target young voters. So why am I reporting on this story? Well, I'm just trying to get you guys prepared. What's coming? Like, you're gonna have all these people with this concern trolling bullshit. Oh man, I know I'm a socialist. I know I'm a communist. I know I believe in revolution, but Donald Trump, he's a threat to our democracy.
That's it.
Gotta rally behind him.
Lord.
So this propaganda is coming, CJ. The war is about to begin. If people was upset at RBN before, just wait.
Oh yeah.
The influencers get their messaging from the White House. So we'll get this short story. I want to get you guys' take on this. Biden and what I call NAFO going domestic, because when you see with the NAFO troll farms, I believe was just a beta test. You're gonna see that with the Biden administration and stuff moving forward, establishment stuff moving forward. But Key and Russ, I'll start with you guys. If any take on this, and now pass it to CJ.
Sorry, Russ, go ahead. No, that's okay. You can go.
I hadn't really been thinking about this too much, but yeah, this is going to be really strange because even into 2020, this movement that had coalesced around the Bernie Sanders campaign hadn't really fragmented the way that it has now. Yeah. When we get into that, and I'm of the opinion, I've talked about this a lot on the show, I've been saying it for a while, that in the end, Ron DeSantis is going to be the nominee. So it's going to be a lot of, he's a fascist, he's going to do in Florida, he's going to do the nation, what he did in Florida, it's going to be a fascist takeover, it's going to be the end of democracy, although they'll say the same thing about Donald Trump, although they'll have some more legitimate policy accomplishments on Ron DeSantis's part to base that argument on. But that is going to lead to a much more furious and nasty fight between channels like ours and channels like the Majority Report. Man, that is going to be, I hadn't really thought about it, but now that you say it,
it's going to start. It's going to be bad. Yeah. I already went through it. I went through it with a smaller platform than I did now. I was just a Twitter account that had 30,000 followers coming out the Bernie campaign, and I went to war with people. And not because I was going after them. I was talking my shit on my timeline. And they're like, how dare you, Nick? I thought you was different. That's a divorce. So when 2024 comes out, these same people that pretend they're radical, man, I'm down with RBN because they're speaking revolution. Wait till we tell them how ridiculous it's going to be to support Jim Crow Joe 2024. Just wait. Yeah.
Right in the middle of that election, it's gonna be worse than fighting the Hellbots in 2016.
Yeah, it's gonna be something, and we're gonna be there to literally debunk the propaganda the same way we debunk the propaganda of Morning Joe. Like when I see the progressive media, Bernie Sanders industrial propaganda, the NATO left propaganda, see it no different as Morning Joe now. Like they are the youth wing of the Democratic Party, so they're gonna have briefings, and we did report on this months ago. So this is almost like a follow-up story. So we did stories about how there are people on TikTok that got briefings from the Biden administration regarding how they should do messaging on COVID and on Ukraine. And just so happens, big people like Vox got the same narrative as the Biden administration on critical stuff like Ukraine and COVID. You guys want to convince me that these things are coincidences? Anyway, any last thoughts before you move on? Go ahead, Russell, Nikki.
On the rare occasion that I catch the YouTube pseudo progressives now, pseudo left, it's funny to me that they're still I don't really watch them anymore, just like I don't watch MSNBC anymore. But when they start talking that shit about the movement we're building, it always takes me aback that they're still talking that way. Like what? Right. Like really? What movement are you talking about now? Like you're peddling that to people that this is a movement The only movement going on here is you moving into a bigger house from the money that you're grifting off these people. That's the movement that you're running.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, all they have, whether it's progressive indie media or corporate media, all they have in 2024 is negative feelings about either DeSantis or Trump, whoever it is. You know, one of the results of the rise of Trump is that it made a lot of people who don't know much about politics, it made them confident that they do know a lot about politics because they can see very obviously that Trump is a bad guy, and so they think, well, if I can identify an asshole when I see them, that makes me a political thinker, right? And so they get involved. And whether it's an MSNBC audience or a TYT audience, that's all they have.
Yep.
Will the influencers make a big difference? I don't know. I think in 2024, you're going to have a very similar dynamic to the midterms, which is the Democrats are basically telling the GOP, here's the country. It's yours if you want it. You just have to be smart enough to take it. Yeah. And there's no guarantee that the Republicans will be smart enough to take it, because as much as we rag on Democrats, since we're a left of center outlet, obviously, the GOP has a lot of their own problems as well, right? Like they can easily fuck this up too. And it's going to be decided at the margins in certain states, just like the midterms were. Most of those races, those statewide races, broke the Democrats' way because of the Roe v. Wade thing. If the Republicans don't come up with an answer on that issue, it might happen again, right? Mm-hmm. But that's kind of where we're at. I don't see there being any organic groundswell of sentiment that really pushes a certain side to an overwhelming victory. I see politics as very stagnant right now, the kind of politics that the sort of quote unquote progressive indie media people are selling, as well as MSNBC. I think the real action that's happening right now is the stuff that channels like yours and channel like ours are actually covering. That's one of the reasons why we're gaining some momentum. We're growing slower than they are because there are fewer people who are paying attention to these kinds of issues. There's a smaller market for Workers Strike Back than there is for even a Marianne Williamson sort of online campaign, right? But in the long run, I think it's pretty obvious that our cause is far more worthwhile, and I think in the long run, that's why we will be just fine in terms of our space. But I think in terms of like short term, 2024, the influencers, yeah, I mean it sounds like a gig for a few lucky people who get a gig, which is all the Democratic Party is anyways. It's just a big gig machine.
That's what they're about, getting people to get a job.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Nick. You had another second short one, and then I have a short one too.
All right. I have one.
Is this dog too loud? Can you hear this dog going crazy here? I have AOC's dog here. I got a French bulldog.
No.
Oh, you can't hear it? Okay. If you can't hear it, then
are you guys down for two more short stories? You guys
sure, yeah, of course.
Sure. All right, cool. CJ, do some quick announcements real quick.
Absolutely. So everybody, we have gotten up to over 600 people watching. Let's get to 600 likes. Much appreciated. You guys have been wanting this duo to team up for a stream, and here you have it. So much appreciated if you shout us out a like. The other thing, join our Substack. If you want to know when we go live, when we have special guests like this one, our Substack, like you can see how many people open the Substack to see how many people viewed each one, and this is one of our higher ones. So we provided you what you wanted, so please hit that like button. We also want to thank you for those that have joined and subscribed to us. 32,400 we recently hit, so much appreciated for all of those recently joined. Two more things, Nick, and I'll pass it to you. We also have RBN memberships, $3.99, brand new. If you can't afford that, we also have Patreon, and I've seen as low as $2. If you can't afford that, then retweeting this is also helpful to us. Scrolling at the bottom, I'll put our fundraiser. We're always raising money for our labor to make sure we're paying them fair labor value, or actually what they asked us to pay. So make sure you contribute to that if you can, and don't forget to hit that like button. Nick, back to you for your second story.
Things are going terribly for the West. And even though I'm probably going to be and our quality of life is going to drop in the meantime. We live in poverty anyway, so fuck it. We might well enjoy it, right? That's my mindset because this is not good, not looking good for us. So this segment's called for CJ and Aaron. You have Emmanuel Macron and Lula directly rebukes Biden's foreign policy. Lula and Emmanuel Macron, the shit lib, directly rebuking the Biden administration foreign policy. So here's Emmanuel Macron. He said Europe must resist pressure to become America's follower, said Macron. And the subheadline said the great risk Europe faces is getting caught up in crises that are not ours. That this is a massive change in tune. And this is after he met with Xi Jinping. Biden administration getting showed up by China left and right. He meets with China and he comes back for the meeting like, man, I don't think we should listen to America before. That boy G got a good pitch. Anyway, now let's get serious. And this is why I said the NATO left. I said not looking good for the NATO left. Because not only do you have Macron who's speaking out against NATO and Western influence over French politics, and I have to make this point: do not think that Emmanuel Macron is saying this because he's some sort of diplomat, that he's some sort of expert of geopolitics. You guys know why this is happening?
I think it has something to do with his own people are burning the fucking country down. Yeah.
That might be it.
Because unlike the left, Bernie Sanders industrial
it's all fun and games until they're burning down BlackRock.
Absolutely. Because unlike the burning media industrial complex and MSNBC, what have we've been covering, CJ? We've been showing the anti-NATO protests in France that complete media blackout on not only just the corporate media, but the NATO left media. That's why I said it's not looking good for the NATO left because it's gonna be hard for them to keep covering this shit up. We did mean propaganda reports and all this stuff. CJ, how many videos have you seen for the TYT, Sam Cedar channel, David Doe talking about Lula's position on NATO? How many?
None.
No, because they're run with and look, this is the ultimate irony of the woke liberal media. They act as if Biden has united the world against Russia. No, he's united much of the white world against Russia, right? But a lot of the global South, a lot of the non-white world who doesn't like this country very much for very good reason, they're not on our side. And look, Macron, at this point, this guy really has no choice but to go which way the wind blows. I mean, he's really not in a position to push his country and his people any further, right?
He knows French history. He knows what can happen when those people get cranky.
Right, exactly. He knows he's already sort of pushed this as far as he can. And not only are there anti-NATO protests in France, but there are anti-austerity protests in France, and those are linked, even though we're doing most of the bankrolling. Look, the people of France don't want this shit. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this except the war profiteers inside this country. And because this country is so fucking stupid, and Nick, as you have said before, we are the most propagandized people on earth. A lot of the morons in this country can be convinced that's what's good for Raytheon is good for them, right? But even those numbers are starting to shrink here in this country. Around the world, people don't want this shit. The fucking, I'm sorry, the territorial integrity of Eastern Ukraine is not worth a nuclear throwdown. Most civilized people understand that. Most people who have a sense of what is at stake here, right? Civilization, right? Humanity. Most people do not want this. And so he is in a spot now where I think he has to pay that some mind.
Yeah, and I also want to show you guys this because this article is extremely interesting. Just for the sake of time in the article, I'm going to explain the most interesting parts. What he's advocating for is strategic autonomy. So separating from the West and having France be an intermediary, almost like a buffer state, being like, we are pro-China, we are pro-West, which is a direct rebuke of Biden's foreign policy. And guess what else he also said? And this is from Kabate, I always share a lot of his tweets on here. He mentions how we got to stay neutral on the issue of Taiwan. And he also mentions, is it in our interest to accelerate a crisis in Taiwan? No. This is Macron rebuking them on Ukraine, rebuking them on Taiwan, and rebuking them on relations with the Chinese people, who is the number one adversary of the United States. I ran out of guys. Like they escalated guys. I did so many propaganda reports. How many anti-China segments I've done for CNN and MSNBC? You guys know how many I skipped recently? Because there's too many. They're cranking it up. Like there's more anti-China segments than ever.
Yeah.
I used to see one. I'm like, CJ, you see this shit? It's crazy. Now there's so many. I can't keep up. I can't keep up every time.
Caitlin Johnstone has been writing a lot about how in Australia they're being heavily propagandized to crank up their military spending to go up against China. Right. That's going to go nuclear. Okay, from the European point of view, or from the view of the rest of the world, going back to Bush, now their point of view is neoliberal, and it's not that they want to create some kind of utopia over there, but their alliance with America increasingly goes against their self-interest. Going back to Bush, their confidence that America could be relied on to lead this neoliberal Western alliance got shaky around Iraq. That was when they first saw, oh shit, America is becoming dangerous to our self-interest. They're starting to do things that are just not good for business. Then Obama came in there and they calmed down a little bit. Then Trump comes in and that pisses them off for completely different reasons. Now you got an American president questioning why we're paying for the defense of the NATO countries, why we have the trade deals that we have. So now they realize, oh shit, Americans could end up electing a president that starts a trade war with us and forces us to pay more for our own defense. And now, even under the party that we like, these guys are going and possibly starting World War III in our backyard for no good reason at all. So you've made the entire situation so unstable and dangerous and confusing and unpredictable that finally allies are starting to say, can we get away from this crazy motherfucker already? Because I don't want to see what's next.
Last thing on this story is not only Macron, as I mentioned earlier, it's Lula. And I always bring it back because we live in the United States, right? I always bring it back here. Why can't we get a member of the NATO left to say this? If you guys think I'm too hard on them, we got Emmanuel Macron, this neoliberal extraordinaire. Even he can say this. But AOC and Bernie can't. Here, Lula da Silva, the person they all congratulated when Lula won. AOC, all the NATO left was like, congratulations, Lula. Even though you have a complete 180 of foreign policy than we do, they all anti-China hawks. They all voted to send weapons to Ukraine. Ukraine too, but Taiwan. Yeah. Right.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, it's a matter of people who have an investment in maintaining a human civilization, right? I mean, wherever you are in the world, I feel like here in this country, we just take for granted that the world can never really change in a dramatic way because we're an ocean away from most of the conflicts that go on. Like, there's not really a sense of what's at stake here in the U.S., at least not amongst a vast majority of people. Although now support for indefinite Ukraine war funding is actually below 50%, which is encouraging, right? Yeah. But look, I mean, I feel like in all these other countries around the world, there is a real sense of what can be lost, right? Whereas in this country, there really isn't. Like, people can't envision a world where the Applebee's isn't open. That's why the lockdowns were very, very traumatic to people, because it was real uncharted territory. Yeah. Whereas I feel like, you know, a country like Brazil, countries like South Africa, India, China, BRICS Alliance, I'm going through the list here. Yeah. They have a sense of like what can happen when shit actually goes down and gets bad. Whereas we just don't have that here. So there's a much longer sort of and slower learning curve in this country, where like our people are always the last to reject war because we're the most insulated from the consequences of war.
Charles Bukowski said it. The problem with these people is their cities have never been bombed.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah. Now, this is the last part of the story. This is Lula calling out the United States, EU, just like with Macron. This is a recent quote. At least a story from April 7th, at least. Brazilian president criticizes United States, EU for reluctance to seek peace solution for Ukraine. We believe that developed nations, particularly the European Union and the United States, should not have rushed to join the conflict so quickly without taking time for due negotiations. That's the statement from Lula. Meanwhile, AOC, Bernie, they voting for this shit. And meanwhile, during the election, when Lula won, these motherfuckers was retweeting Lula. Bernie was like, congratulations, Lula.
Yep.
AOC, all the NATO levels, like, oh my God, we love Lula. Then soon Lula took charge. They stopped paying attention to everything he said.
Right.
Well, you remember the Progressive Caucus released that little mild statement, and the next day they're like, well, it wasn't finished, and then by the next day, oh, that was a staffer. That was
the next day they never sent it. Right?
They never sent it. They never meant to say that part.
And then don't forget, Nick, when Lula came to DC, they had to get their photo op to prove that they're somehow left as and he's not even really all that.
And then there was like, remember Jacob Ben wrote that embarrassing article that we covered that. Where it was like Lula meeting with Bernie Sanders is proof that the electoral strategy is success. And then Lula people was like, nigga, he meet with everybody, bro. Like, what y'all talking about? Every time he goes to a country, he meets with politicians in different coalitions. It's so pathetic what they'll graft into. But go ahead, CJ.
All right. So we can end with this story here. I'll just show you Ben Norton's tweet, and I'm sure some of you or one of you may have seen this. And so the title of this one, Aaron, is Dalai Lama.
I didn't know we were watching the Vanguard today. I wasn't prepared for this.
I don't know if you get the reference in that joke. I get the reference in that joke.
It's not for everybody.
All right, okay, so Ben Norton tweets this out, and this is an informative thread, and I'll just read and get reaction, and then we'll close here. But yeah, it looks like Dalai Lama also has been a CIA asset. And I'll read this. The CIA has spent billions of dollars over decades supporting separatists in Tibet, aimed precisely at bringing back this feudalism. The CIA armed and trained far-right Tibetan feudalists to war a terror war against China's central government. This is their ideology. And it's all because of this photo has gone viral.
What is happening there?
Oh, this dude, I saw this earlier. And I was like, what? So the Dalai Lama, he apparently released this apology because he was caught kissing a kid, and he told the kid to check this guy. He told the kid to suck his tongue. What, sir? What? I didn't even retweet it because I don't want my father to see this shit. This is very, very traumatic.
Nick, you know this experience is a case of never meet your heroes because you're fucking with me this whole show.
Why? I have a question. Why the person who set up the mic then go wait, suck tongues? No,
I can't.
Or the camera person or anybody in the room just take off their mask. Sucking tongues, Dolly. We're not doing that today, Dolly. No sucking tongues of a. And this looks like literally that looked like a 6-7-year-old. But continue.
Like, Nick, what is happening? What is happening? This isn't some ritual thing. This is like, hey kid, come suck my tongue. No, like, what's happening here?
You had to apologize.
I mean, let me read this here and try to grab. It says the 14th Dalai Lama owned some sort of 800 kilograms of gold, $500 million US, 6,000 serfs and slave boys. Before Tibet was liberated by the CPC, life looked like this. And it just shows this picture. I don't know if it's an article. It gives more detail. Let me see. No, this is a comment. I'm going to read it from that show. It says, American Gigolo star Richard Gere advocates Tibet's freedom and restoring the Debunking monastery's glory. I think that's something else. But here it goes right here. Oh, there's a video. Oh my lord! Oh my lord! Okay, come on. Let's.
Hopefully we don't get pulled for this shit, man.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, man. And you know you want to see the statement he put out, CJ?
What?
Oh, no, come on.
Oh, they
man.
stop it right there and they restart it. They stop it before you actually see it. They stop it before you actually see it. And then it says, you see that? I'm not going to read the word, but this is an Indian boy at a Buddhist event.
And that's hard to watch, man. Hard to watch.
Yeah. So he goes on. Let me read the rest of it. It says, it's undeniable. It's an undeniable fact that the Dalai Lama has been a CIA asset at least since the 1960s. The New York Times AP admitted the CIA trained and armed Tibetan separatists in the 1960s, paying them $17 million per year, adjusted for inflation, to wage a terror war on communism. And then he just shows a couple of receipts. Here, brief Dalai Lama group says it got money from the CIA. This is from the New York Times in 1998.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he just breaks down here. The money allocated for the resistance movement was spent on training volunteers and paying for guerrilla operations against the Chinese, the Tibetan government in exile said in a statement. So what is your reaction? Does any of this surprise you, or had you ever heard about this? Go ahead.
All right, my Virtuoso, we share him as an audience member. He has a pretty funny line in the chat. His tongue tastes like nothingness.
Let me show this, CJ. This is the Dalai Lama statement. I'm gonna share this real quick. Look at this. Because if it makes anyone feel better who is disgusted by the story like I am, this man is facing. Here, let me put the screen up. This man is facing massive international backlash because of this. Hopefully that makes you feel better. To the point where he had to tweet this out on his official page. And this is hilarious. They've been in damage control mode. He said a video clip has been circulating. They're already funny to me. That shows a recent meeting when a young boy asked His Holiness, how about not call him that right now? The Dalai Lama, if he could give him a hug. His Holiness wished to apologize to the boy and his family, as well as the many friends across the world for the hurt his words may have caused. Meaning, I want to apologize to the many people we just fucking traumatized with this shit. He also, look at this part. His Holiness often teases people he meets in an innocent and playful way. Who haven't among us told a little boy that
to suck our tongue, you know?
Suck our tongue. Anyway, I just want to add that part. I thought that part was hilarious.
All right, your reaction. So
you got to pay the birthday clown extra for that.
Any other reaction before we close? I know it's pretty disgusting. It wasn't meant to be about the kiss. It was more supposed to be about him being a CIA asset. Yeah. But I know that, seeing that is just so jarring that you can't unsee it. But any final thoughts on just leaders like this, people like this in other countries being on the CIA payroll? And I'm sure he's not the only one. I'm sure there's a lot of other people on that payroll. But any last thoughts on this story before we close?
I mean, it's convenient this is the last story because I pretty much got nothing. But what I will say is if this doesn't get Donald Trump back on Twitter, I don't know what will. I would love it. How great would it be? He comes back to attack the Dalai Lama. Video of sick pervert Dalai Lama.
I wonder are conservatives really conservative podcasts like the Matt Washes? I wonder if they're gonna really jump on.
Oh yes, they definitely are.
Yeah. Go ahead, Russell.
Go ahead, Russell.
Look, it's very, this is bigger than what we want to open up at the end of the show. I've mentioned this a few times. Whenever we talk about China, our view on China is measured. I feel like a lot of the world is looking forward to a post-American Chinese leadership because the Chinese historically are not all that interested in colonizing other places or putting bases far outside their territory. Historically, they're interested in their neighborhood, and that's about it. So I think, they're not interested in other countries' internal affairs. They're not interested in other people's governments. So I think that's what you're seeing with a lot of countries sitting down and using China as an intermediary, like we just saw with Saudi Arabia and Iran. I think a lot of people feel like they're going to be easier to deal with. And it's not going to be so much like dealing with the 800-pound gorilla when you try to do business with China. At the same time, I don't want to make out China to be Switzerland. Like, yes, there is exaggerated Western propaganda about internal affairs in China. At the same time, it's not all propaganda. This is not like a free and open society. So I don't want to fall into a tendency that the left has historically had of supporting very questionable regimes that are enemies of the United States for really enemy of my enemy is my friend reasons, but rehabilitating those countries in that effort. Like, yes, it's more complicated than we get through our media, but I look at a story like this and I'm saying, well, how much is this story as legit? The story is legitimate. I'm glad it's out there, but how much is that story designed to drum up that kind of support for China? Because if you even look at the way that tweet is phrased, well, look how bad the Dalai Lama is. Okay, well, how have you treated the Tibetan people in the several decades that you've occupied that country? Like, are the Tibetan people whistling zippity doodah at your benign leadership? I lived with Chinese people in college, and when I asked them about politics, they wouldn't talk about it, which told me a lot. Their basic attitude was, that's not for us. That's for the government. And it said a lot to me. Like, yeah, if you live in a society where you're going to get in trouble for getting political, you just want to stay off that shit, right? Get your college degree, earn your living, and that's it. So I don't want us to fall into that trap as a lot of leftists did with the Soviet Union, of being very supportive of Stalin. And, that wasn't a good look in retrospect.
I think someone made the argument that it's very important to debunk the lies that the empire tend to tell by their enemies, especially enemies that have a different approach. But I think that was mostly what Bitnoy was trying to do. But point taking. Keaton, CJ, anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up? We got some super chats we got to get to as well.
Yeah, well, let's get them out because I know we can get a 2-hour limit. Yeah.
No, we're fine. But thank you guys. It was great to finally meet you guys, and we'd love to have you guys back on our show sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
When, you have a regular time that's always that you want to shout out that your show.
Oh yeah, we're on YouTube and Rumble Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and Sundays at 7 Eastern. Those are our 2 regular weekly streams. And then every once in a while, we'll throw in a third if something big comes up. But those are our 2, like, every week.
We're going to be launching on Rumble soon. So hopefully maybe you can, join us for that launch. And our plan is to, like, have a launch stream and then have several guests who are already on Rumble to kind of
Rumble, I mean, there aren't as many people there. But, we get a decent crowd on Rumble every night. Every time we go on, and it's great to have. I mean, it's great.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen on a platform like this, obviously.
Right. So anything else you want to shout out before we put you in the back, and you can take off whenever you're ready. Russell, Keaton, do Dissidence. Anything else you want to shout out before you take off?
Well, you can find us on YouTube. Just type us in. And we also are available on any audio podcast player. And we have a Substack, just like you guys do, dissidence.substack.com. I think that's about all we got.
Yeah.
But once again,
thank you very
so
much. Yeah, thank you for having us on. It's been an honor.
Yeah, appreciate your time, man. It was a lot. There was a lot to discuss. It was a lot, very fun conversation.
That's about maybe half of it, yeah. So we'll have to bring them on or have another conversation maybe on their show. So thanks, guys. We'll pop you in the bag.
Let me know. Yep.
Yeah, this definitely got to be a thing because it was fun. This definitely has to be a thing. All right, let me get to some super chats just real quick, and then I had to bounce out.
Yeah,
I'm going. I featured a few. I'll just get some shout outs. The people I didn't get a chance to really feature.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks for $5, Jimmy. That's not the real Dalai Lama. Do your research. And you find the chain was broken and this faker was put in place by the evil elite for real. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know anything about that. Like the Dalai Lama, the Pope, Shit's weird to me, man. I try not to offend people, but man,
they're missing the point of it. Is not that the video is real or fake. Like I said, the point was that the Dalai Lama has been on the CIA payroll. That's the point of the story. Is not the so it doesn't make a difference whether the video to me is real or not. The point that he's being on CIA payroll. So go ahead.
Yeah, like they refer to him as His Holiness. What the fuck is that about? Like, it's just weird to me. Like, you're God? Like,
all these things, all these gods walking on, like the Pope too, like all these gods walking on Earth. I'm just not with none of this stuff.
I avoid that conversation for the most part, but since the conversation up, the shit's weird, man. Like, this is like, so the Dalai Lama and the Pope, like, these are like gods or something. Why are you calling them?
Yeah, they're like supposedly like very holy humans, the holiest level of a human you can be. To God,
my mind is not wired that way. It never has been. And I'm just saying, I'm glad my religious family respected that because my mind is not wired that way to understand that shit. But anyway, thank you for $2, Eric. Jose, sorry, apologize. Pedophilia is how you achieve nothingness. Thank you for the $5. We got quite a few, so I'll try to shout out as many as I can real quick. Another one from Eric. Macron thought he was going to put G in his place. Score some brownie points from Daddy U.S. Empire. In fact, man, I think G told him some shit. He came back like, man, maybe we should go from the West. I didn't see that coming, guys. Just like Japan.
He probably saw the blueprints. He probably showed him, hey, listen, this is what's happening next time. You're down with this, or you can be over here in the corner. Probably showing them a map. This is where the U.S. is going to be happening to them. Do you want this or you want to prosper?
Yeah.
That's what happened. I mean, because that was a shock. That was a shock. Along with what Japan did, buying like oil. Who they buy from? Japan. That was another shock. Yeah, that was.
I'm surprised by that in the Macron story. That's why I had to report on that today. I'm like, I read down Twitter like, we said what? Did not see that coming. And my first thought was like, this is because of NATO protests. Like he's so politically vulnerable. He has to give him something, right? And I think that's something that he wanted to concede on. Here another $5 from Loud66. No way Dems run Biden. Imagine RFK versus Trump. Deep state will be afraid. I foresee another Kennedy assassination. RFK has balls, unlike Bernie.
I don't know RFK that well. And to be honest with you, I hear this description or I hear a completely out. It's like one or the other. Like I hear people say, no, he's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll hear people say, he's crazy, he's off his rocker. So since I don't know him that much, I have to kind of reserve my.
Apparently, he was like big
more about him. Yeah,
he was big debunking the COVID narrative to the point he was banned on Twitter multiple times. Apparently, some chat left me on my other show. He's supposed to be anti-war and all this stuff, blah blah blah. But to this common point, he said, "No way, Dems run Biden. If they do not run Biden, they're gonna pull him after the primary." I literally made this prediction in the early days of FHL. I remember I had a conversation with Jackie at the time where she predicted that Biden not going to be the candidate. I said, I actually disagree. I think they're going to keep Biden alive. They're going to drug him up. They're going to keep him as long as possible. If they can keep him alive for the second term, they will definitely go for it. Worst case scenario, they will wait till after the primary and then anoint Kamala or whoever his running mate is.
Right.
So they can choose a nominee. I literally predicted that 2 years ago, guys. And that is what's going to happen. I don't agree with people who think that Biden not going to run. They would not do that. They already set it up.
They're not willing to open up the options to them actually possibly not getting the person they want in on there, which is a Buttigieg or a Kamala.
You want to know the moment I knew Biden was going to be the choice? Unless this guy literally falls over and dies, guys. Like this guy got to be in horrible. Like even if he's deathly sick, they will just drug him up. They will do anything they can to drag him across the fence line. I know this was the case when Bernie Sanders said, I am not going to run for president unless Biden's the nominee. The second he was allowed to make that quote is why I'm like, oh yeah, Biden's definitely running. That's definitely the guy. They're going to at least have passed the primary. And this only is the case if Biden's too sick. Only if Biden's too sick, then they're going to do the swap where they'll take his running mate. But if they can keep him in president, they don't care how unhealthy he is. He got a job to do.
Yeah, they don't care.
They're gonna keep him alive with drugs, the best healthcare in the world, and they're gonna have a corpse in the White House in 2024. If that's the best case scenario for him, and that doesn't work, if he gets too sick, they're gonna replace him after the primaries. If he drop dead, that's when things get bad for them. but I think they're gonna keep him alive to then. He got the best healthcare there is. So look how long they keep Kissinger alive. Look at Donald Trump. Dude, Donald Trump is unhealthy as shit, but that guy is healthy as hell because of his healthcare and the benefits that you get in that lifestyle. So no doubt in my mind, that's my prediction. We see if I'm wrong. I think I've been right up to this point on this. Not that big of a deal because it's just electoral politics at the end of the day. But I think Biden will be the guy. Please discuss U.S. citizen-owned resources and utilities. We can end poverty and fix reparations. We can all get a check every month and stop paying for water. Thank you for that $5, Carrie. You muted, by the way, CJ.
Sorry, I was just saying, if for people that didn't get what that tweet was, or that super chat is basically nationalizing all of utilities and how that would change. That would literally change our lives a lot if we nationalize that utility.
Yeah, season the means of production. Thank you for the 199, Zach. A 2024 wild card. Vax injury recognition. Crescendos. Thank you for the 199, Zach. Another one we got here. Thank you for $10, Noah. I want to pose another option alongside Cowbell Left. I'll call them couch sitting liberals or the couch sitters. I'm always down for new nicknames.
Yeah, I love them all.
I've been calling them the NATO left recently, the boutique left I'm a fan of. But any other way to describe these people, I'm all down for. I'm all about narrative control. Like that we need to find these people. These people, that's what they are. I'm not saying anything that's wrong. Like when I say they're the NATO left, what's wrong about that description? They get mad when I say it. I'm like, why are you mad? You support NATO, don't you? You support going to war. You support going to war with Russia for NATO, right? That's what you are. We are the post-duopoly love. You are pro-duopoly. You're voting for Democrats. We just labeling what they are, and what does that say? That just labeling what they are is embarrassing, right? But here's another one from Zach. I think for 199. Voting a lesser evil is giving your consent to evil. That's common sense to me. I don't understand. Like if you vote for Joe Biden, don't matter if you tweet all day, you can release oppo videos on him. He like, you voting for me in 2024? Well, I got no choice. All right, man, shut up, bitch. They don't care. Yeah. They don't care. It's obvious to me. I don't know why people don't make that same conclusion, Zach. This is another one from Zach. I already read this one, so I'll get into some of the super chats already featured. I'm just doing a quick scan.
Unless there were new ones, I put a bunch in there, but I don't. Let me.
Yeah, I want to make sure I don't miss any. If I miss any super chat, not slight, I'll feature a lot earlier. Thank Eric for the $5. Jimmy Dore is right. Our government is super corrupt and only operates if there's corrupt involved. I think it's another one. Thank for that $5, Eric. Another one for Mosaic. The combo I've been waiting for. Yeah, I tell you, man. It was fun, though. Very fun conversation. You guys do great work and the real indie left on YouTube. Please keep exposing the pretend left shit lips. Like there's a bit like people love. I think those like our biggest videos. People love our videos exposing these people. Like we can do video on mutual aid, they get less. Get less. And I'm not complaining. It is what it is. Like you guys watch what we want to watch. But that shows that the fact that people watch those videos more than other videos show that there's an appetite. Like motherfuckers are tired of these people. Like, and people have just been waiting. People have not wanted to call out these people because they've been friends in this space. We haven't known these people. Me and CJ Rome had no experience with these people before this. So we don't have that relationship like tension there. Where I'm not even gonna say a name. Where some person don't want to criticize David Schroeder, or don't want to criticize Marianne Williamson because they're friends. No, we black people got in this space have no idea who these people are, and we see them know differently as more to go. We see the propaganda. So people click those videos and people enjoy those videos more than others because there's been a long-term frustration over these people. And people like RBN do Dissidence are one of the people that call it out. Jimmy called it out, but Jimmy was like enemy number one. But they can easily cut it off and they say, oh, yeah, of course Jimmy said that about us. But finally, there are people that outside of the Jimmy conflict that's calling these people out for the propagandists that they are. So I think I want to do a quick scan. I think we got all of them. I read a few earlier. And once again, I'm not trying to slight anyone.
This one we got to, this JFK one?
No, not yet.
Okay. It's in there. It's in there, so we can get to it.
There's no one for Christian. For $10. Do Dissidents stopping by for a fireside chat with RBN. R2 Juggernauts of Truth. CJ and CJ teaming up with Russell and Keaton. Y'all gonna get us in trouble. What a way to start the week. Salute you. No, much love to you, Christian. Salute to you as well. And I know I read this one before, so I'm gonna get to some of the new ones. I know you starred. Appreciate everyone for the super chat. No slight at all if I accidentally skip you. I tagged as many as I can. Thank you for the 499 Zach. RFK Jr. restored the Hudson and beat Big Pharma in court. If you hear negative things, they're from people who are repeating narratives they heard. That is what I assumed. And my general thing, I'm not gonna support a president for president before I do a lot of research, right? But I know all the criticism I hear of RFK Jr. are for shit libs who mad that he had a conversation with Jimmy and he against the COVID narrative. So shit lib critiques mean very little to me. Like my critiques are class-based, policy-based. They say he's anti-war. They say he debunked the COVID narrative. So I'm not against the guy. I'm just not for the strategy generally. You know what I mean? But I'm not. So I have, and I explained this before. I think the first time I talked about RFK Jr. Based on what I've seen from him, I have no real complaints about him. But Marianne Williamson is like different because apparently like he's against the wars and all this stuff. Marianne Williamson, I was against Marianne Williamson for the strategy and the person. You guys understand? So I was critiquing the strategy, and I was like, and by the way, Marianne is one of the worst people we can choose to run as commander-in-chief for a Ukraine case, for an Afghanistan case, over and over. RFK, I would just critique the strategy. I don't think that's the best strategy. That's just my opinion. But I don't got nothing against the guy. I just don't think that's the best strategy. That's my final take on that. Because I don't know. I think I saw the Jimmy interview. That was a long time ago. I saw he did an interview with Jimmy. I saw like half of it. So that's about as far as my knowledge go with the guy. But Jimmy, CJ, anything else before we?
No, we are probably gonna close out tomorrow. If I, because I'm still dealing with this internet thing, so I'm sure it's luckily it happened with my kids being on spring break. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be able to stream much this week. So probably be streaming from here the rest of this week just to shout that out to everybody. Outside of that, any special guests we got coming up this week, or you have scheduled? Or
I know some later. I got to confirm.
Okay,
I got to confirm for you. So I don't want to do that thing where I say it too early and don't end up happening. So
yeah,
I confirm. And I'll let you guys know. I'll confirm. I'll let you.
All right, then. I think.
I see you guys are being live tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll end with a Do Dissidence video when they're talking about Marianne Williamson. And thank you everybody for watching this crossover episode with Do Dissidence, Nick and CJ coming together for this crossover episode. So here we go.
I put a lot of labor hours into the Bernie campaign. I know I had so many conversations, met with people, talked with people who was broke, struggling, who was still donating money to the Bernie campaign. $100 million spent by the working class on the Bernie campaign. And what did we get? We got a guy in a movement who threw away his political revolution, who abandoned his outside game, and what I consider $100 million thrown in the drain. Now, what we got by investing that kind of money is literally PR agents of the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders is a war pig who's funding war. They're all apologizing for the same things they used to criticize Trump for. So I see that as a massive waste of the working class money to do that again, especially someone running in the Democratic Party and someone I view as being a little bit too soft on Biden Democratic Party. So I'm going to ask you, why do you think people should invest in your campaign considering what we already wasted?
Well, I think much of what you said is a legitimate argument. I think there are a lot of legitimate points to be made here. One of the times I saw you, Sabby, you were mentioning something that I had said about running as a Democrat and being nostalgic for the Democratic Party of FDR. And you said on your show, oh, Marianne, that Democratic Party doesn't exist anymore. Well, you're right, actually. And that's why I was hoping you were actually going to I almost want to say, well, let me on, because you're right. And I certainly understand someone your age, you haven't even seen that Democratic Party, whereas I at least have some institutional memory.
Okay, I have to pause it here. She said this to the Vanguard guys, too. Goes on about her nostalgia for the Democratic Party of old. That is an obnoxious point to make because, I'm sorry, your emotional nostalgia for the bygone era of a populist Democratic Party is fucking irrelevant. It's irrelevant. That's like saying McDonald's used to be kind of healthy back before they started with the pink slime, right? The first McDonald's, they gave you a real hamburger. Okay, great. That's not what it is anymore, right? Now it's a pink slime pumping corporate machine, just like the Democratic Party is now. So the fact that you remember the heyday of the party. That's irrelevant.
It does give you a lot of insight into where she's coming from, because
okay, but I don't care, man. Like I don't like that's it's almost an insulting thing to say. It borders on insulting. It really does.
I'm just saying it's interesting. Like what? Because I don't consider her a dishonest actor.
I'm not saying she's dishonest. I'm just saying that's an obnoxious point.
It is, but it shows you that what is animating her is this, what I would consider a delusion. That and really, even institutional memory or not, I think we were all animated by that. Those of us who got involved in the Bernie campaign, we were all
and I just want to clarify. Sorry to cut you
idea.
off, but Jean says she wants the Clinton years back. No, she's not talking about the Clinton years. On the Vanguard interview, she was talking about the FDR years, right? She's talking about basically the New Deal Democrats. Yeah.
The New Deal Democrats, who, arguably, I mean, we've gone so far to the right that we kind of think of Jimmy Carter as the last of those Democrats. He was really the first.
Yeah, he was the first of the shitty ones.
He was the first neoliberal Democrat.
Right, exactly.
But based on our standards, he was Mao Zedong compared to what came after him. That's why he's remembered that way. But really, he was the first one to start to shift it towards the Clintonian Democratic Party. It's just in that era that he was serving, it looks very far left to us now. But I think we were all animated by that. I mean, it doesn't matter if you could personally remember it. We know that the Democratic Party used to not be this. And I of course, that was our hope when we backed Sanders. That there was this old guy who was a refugee from that era who was going to come in and restore the soul of the Democratic Party. Now, the question is, why does she still believe that after seeing what happened to the Sanders campaign and seeing the absolute ineffectiveness of the squad? Why do you still nurse that?
She's talking about some emotional fixation that she